Welcome to the Deer Hunter Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and evolve the modern-day deer hunter. Hello everybody and welcome to the Deer Hunter Podcast. This week's episode we have Conservation Officer Ben Lasher sitting in the studio with us, and I didn't quite get to do this the way that I wanted to. Had I had the proper amount of time, I wanted to get in contact with listeners and have people email in questions, but Ryan was the one that contacted Ben and set all this up and kind of made the whole thing happen, and I really didn't have the time to do the legwork, but we are going to do this again. And so any questions that anyone that listens to this would have after you listen to it, feel free to email in, and any questions in general. Ben's a really cool guy. This is the first time I met him, actually 5 minutes before we recorded this, and that'll be apparent about a couple minutes in when I call him Bob. However, we're going to have Ben over again to do this, so any questions that you would have that you want to have a conservation officer answer, feel free to write them in. And I know a lot of this pertains specifically to the state of Michigan, but I hope the guys that listen that don't live in the state of Michigan can benefit and get something out of this as well. So thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great day.
Controlling the volume of my voice on here, set off all the alarms.
Yeah, Ryan's been known to kick up some back feed.
That might be a little later in a podcast after.
That was what Jeff kept saying at that brewery. He goes, "Now I see why the mics are always blowing out on you guys. This guy's never quiet."
Like that more cowbell
scenario. we were just out in Wisconsin for this guy named Dan Infalt. He does a scouting clinic, probably about 4 or 5 of them a year or something.
Yeah, I think he said he did 5 or 6 this year. He booked up.
Oh, the guy is amazing for scouting out and hunting public land and getting mature bucks on public land. And we did his clinic, and then after that, he took us all out to eat. And then we went to the hotel, and there's a brewery that was right out in the parking lot of the hotel, so that was dangerous.
Yeah.
So we all meandered over there.
Yep.
And had a good time. Seen a lot of good guys out there.
Yeah, it was a fun night for sure. It was not a fun 7-hour drive home. After,
not for me.
The next day, but it was a quiet car ride home compared to when we were going over there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Must have had some good brews then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I kind of curled up in a ball in the back seat. Tried to recover before I had to go home and, act normal for my family.
I think I outgrew that a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. It's about time. I don't break out too much like that, but I did that time. I've been under a lot of stress at work.
How's the volume in your guys' ears? Is it too loud, too quiet? Can you hear well?
Mine's just a bit high, I think.
And you are on channel 3, I believe.
I know you probably cranked mine up, so I'm super aware of mine.
How's that?
It's good right now. Yes.
Okay.
Better.
You might want to move your microphone out just a little bit. There you go. That's probably pretty good. Yep.
I feel like I'm on my airboat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got headsets for that.
Where do you keep your airboat?
Down in Harson's.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You have a place over there?
Just the wildlife management.
Yeah.
The office over there.
Oh, you work out of there?
Well, we keep equipment in their pole barn.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm over there quite a bit in the fall working duck hunters. But we do keep some gear over there that we can't have. We don't have real good storage. So we have to beg, borrow, and steal from other divisions.
Okay.
So Wildlife Division's got a bunch of barns for their farming equipment for Harson's.
Oh, yeah.
And they make room for a couple boats for us over there.
Oh, nice. Right over by the draw office and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, that same complex right there.
So I know you can't, but I can have a beer, right?
You bet you can. It's your man cave.
I'm a little bit under the weather. I probably shouldn't, but
you need something stronger to cut the flub.
That's what I figured.
Grandpa's cough medicine.
Yep.
Where is your headquarters?
It's in your driveway.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I work out of the truck.
Do you?
Yep. We take it home. And we usually have home offices. I was in the basement in my office today typing up some reports, trying to get those finished up. And But primarily I work out of that truck in the driveway.
Okay. And your territory is essentially?
I'm assigned to St. Clair, and there's 3 of us in St. Clair now. So it's kind of divvied up in thirds if we're all working. Mm-hmm. But generally that doesn't happen where we're all working the same day at the same time. So I could be in northern St. Clair County. I could be on Lake St. Clair. I could be anywhere in that county at any given time. But I also am responsible to go to Macomb and Lapeer counties if those officers aren't available to respond to something, and we got to send somebody over there for depending on the complaint.
Okay.
I might have to go to one of those counties to cover.
So you can jump jurisdiction.
Well, we have statewide jurisdiction.
You do.
So we can work in the state of Michigan anywhere in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
I worked in Aranet County for 9 years, and I got the chance to go. I went over to Tippy Dam and worked salmon snaggers over there for a couple of weekends. I got to go up to Grand Traverse, Kalkaska counties to work snowmobile activity. And that's back in the late 90s when we had fewer officers, and I was in the middle of the state, so I could go without too much travel time to get to those spots. Mm-hmm. I would volunteer in a heartbeat to go work bear or elk hunters.
Oh, yeah.
In Atlanta or up in the UP, but they just haven't had the opportunity to volunteer to go up there and do that kind of stuff.
Maybe we should get an introduction. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that. I was going to ask what your official title is, how it appears on paper.
I am a conservation officer for the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Law Enforcement Division.
Okay. And you've been doing it how many years?
I've been doing this now. I'm working on number 22.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah. I got hired in 1996. So I've got a couple years before I can retire. And I grew up in St. Clair County, and I got the chance to come back. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be like a dream job.
Yeah.
Well, St. Clair County has got a lot of neat resources.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't realize what's there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some of the best sturgeon fishing in this side of the country.
Yep.
Muskie fishing.
Muskie fishing is huge. Bass fishing is nationwide. Some of the best bass fishing in the country. Our walleye fishery went nuts.
Yeah,
these last 2 years, last year especially, and presumably the numbers are looking as good as they were, or better than from last year. They were catching limits of walleye through the ice at Metro Beach this winter. They had a few walleye getting caught off of Fairhaven, and from what I've been told by old timers, we haven't caught walleye off of those areas in 20-some years.
Well, I've heard people that they're not experienced anglers at all, and they were catching tons of walleye right off the boardwalk, Marysville,
last summer, yes.
Oh, yeah, last summer. I mean, I had no chance to go fishing. I was working 7/12s, but of course I missed it.
Yeah.
When people were just limited out every single night.
The best year of fishing St. Clair's ever seen, and we're just grinding it away at work the whole time.
It's really pretty sad.
Well, they had, there's certain areas where you can usually go year in and year out, and you can catch fish.
Mm-hmm.
In the spring, you can generally go down in front of the Marysville Golf Course and cast and catch some walleye. You can go to Lincoln Park or Mermaid Park, right there along, the south end of Port Huron is Lincoln Park.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then Mermaid Park would be the first park south of that into Marysville. You can go there from shore and cast, and you can catch walleye there. Those are year in and year out. You can go there and catch fish. In the 12 years I've been back in St. Clair County, I haven't had anybody fishing between the Junction Buoy restaurant and the water plant for walleye.
Really?
That hasn't been a spot where anybody would catch fish because the water levels were low. And if they did catch fish, they were usually in the corner, and they catch some small perch or something, or catfish at night. That wasn't a walleye spot. Well, this past summer, they were shoulder to shoulder, casting in that park and getting limits of walleye.
Really?
It's just, there were so many fish in the river. Pretty much anywhere you could get to the river.
Yeah.
And you've got the lure in the right depth of water, you're going to catch some walleye.
If you knew how to work it and you messed around a little bit, you could find it, and it would be easy.
Yep, it was an amazing year. And this next year, we're expecting it to be just as good, if not better. Because all those little fish that we caught that were 12, 11 and a half inches are all going to be 13 to 14 inches. So,
what do you find they grow from year to year? Well, it depends on a lot of variables.
I don't have a strong biology background, but I've been told that they would go a couple inches a year with the proper food. So if our minnow numbers are up, we should be good. And the gobies are in the food chain now for bass and walleye both. So that's another, they're not something that we really want. They're invasive species, but it's taken a couple years. But now the predator fish have found that they are something they're gonna work on for the food in the food chain.
And as far as the gobies, because we're probably going to touch on some invasive species. What's the law on those if you catch them? Is it illegal basically to put them back in the water?
Well, you cannot possess a live goby.
Okay.
So the catch is a live goby is better bait than a dead goby for bass in particular, from what I've experienced in my patrols. Talking to guys. And you cannot possess a live goby. So if you catch a goby and you've got a bait bucket, you throw it in the bait bucket and it's swimming around there and you're going to use it for bait, you're now in violation. Yep. You're in possession of live goby. Now, if you catch a goby and you smash it on the cement and you hook it up and use it for bait and it's dead, there's no violation there. The problem that we're trying to address is the fact that guys that catch gobies in the St. Clair River, and they work real good on bass in the St. Clair River. So they think, well, if I take it to X lake somewhere else, inland,
that's a big problem.
Now I've taken an invasive species and put it in an inland lake that doesn't have that invasive species, and it may spread. It could be a female full of a couple thousand eggs. Oh. We don't want that to happen. That's why you can't possess a live goby, because we don't want it transferred to another lake inland. We already got them here. We know they're here.
Right.
We don't want them going to the inland lakes. There's how many lakes are in Oakland County? Oh. We don't want to spread these gobies to those other inland lakes. Right. So that's why you can't possess a live one.
Yeah,
but you can use them for dead bait.
For guys that are listening that aren't from this area, a goby is a small fish, invasive species, essentially a bottom eater. Am I correct? Or
yes, they're a bottom feeder.
Okay.
They eat a lot of the. The first concern when we first realized they were here is that they're competing with all our small perch and our small bait fish for food, phytoplankton. And also there's a video out there from years ago, I think it was Minnesota, did a research study, and they had a camera on a bass bed. And they would pull these bass off these beds, and they would time how fast those gobies were in there to eat the eggs.
Really?
And it's seconds.
No kidding.
That bass is off the bed, and the gobies are in there eating the eggs. So they have, and obviously, they have an effect on a reproduction if they're eating the eggs.
Right.
So the good thing is our predator fish have got them in the food chain now, and oftentimes you'll catch a bass or a walleye in the St. Clair River.
They're full of them.
They'll spit out a goby.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great.
I've seen that a lot. And we probably think they came in on our freighters,
Well, that's what the assumption is,
Bilge water, discharge or something of that sort.
My understanding is they're from Europe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where all the bad stuff comes from.
The only way they're going to get here really is from the bottom of a boat, bottom of a schrader.
Right.
And I think that's happened with
zebra mussel.
Often, a lot of our invasive species. They're not from the state, and that's why they're evasive, and that's why we don't want them. They're not native.
Yeah, we were just in Wisconsin this last weekend, and to see a marsh of cattails again was like
pretty awesome.
Yes.
Wow, because now it's all 6-foot-tall Phragmites here, and you're walking on waist-high cattails as far as you could see. It was amazing. You just get complacent, and now you see Phragmites, so you don't even think twice about it. But to get out there and actually see what St. John's used to look like,
yes,
it really brought it back.
Yep, the Phragmites is a bugger. Right now, a hot thing for us is used to be the rusty crayfish were a problem. Well, now we're seeing the red swamp crayfish getting released, and those are the crawdads you get from down south that we have for crawdad dinner, or it's a small lobster basically.
Yeah.
Poor man's lobster.
Yeah, poor man's lobster. They're getting brought up and used for food. People are eating them, but now guys use them for bait. Well, they've had an infestation in Novi in a water retention pond, and they baited these things, and they've caught thousands of these red swamp crayfish out of this pond, out of one pond, and they're starting to trap them in other ponds within 5-mile radius of this thing.
Really?
So it's spreading.
So they're spreading, and they'll crawl. They get to be 8-10 inches long. They get pretty big size. And the bigger problem with these guys is obviously they're bigger and stronger than our native crayfish, but they are huge boring. They bore into the shoreline.
So you're talking erosion?
Erosion problem.
Okay.
And it's almost similar to a muskrat. They make a big hole, and then once it leaves, it all drops in. So your shore gets messed up just like it would from a muskrat.
Wow.
But these things, there's hundreds of eggs, and they reproduce like 3 times a year.
You can't stop it at this point.
Well, that's the problem. We got to figure out where they're at, and see if we can
choke them out. Yeah.
Try and choke them out.
That's such a tough battle.
At least they taste better than a muskrat.
Yeah. Or a goby. But yeah, it sounds there's a big impact. It sounds like.
Yes, and that's the other hot topic right now for us is in fisheries division would be the red swamp, and then obviously the Asian carp.
Oh, that's terrifying.
That's a big problem. We hopefully can keep them from getting here in the Great Lakes, but I really don't know the science behind how we're going to stop that.
We just covered 2 episodes back. I had a friend on, Drew Youngdyke, does quite a bit of work for he works now for the National Wildlife Federation for the Great Lakes chapter. And so he kind of explained in detail like what the plan is that they're trying to get pushed through.
Okay.
And
on the legislative end.
The problem is a lot of financial responsibility falls on Illinois. Illinois doesn't want to foot the bill.
Right.
So they feel like it should be spread out, and it kind of makes sense because obviously the fishery to us is a huge, it's $1 billion industry annually.
Mm-hmm.
So the state of Michigan has a lot of interest in protecting it.
Yep.
But right now it's millions holding up billions, and everybody's kind of sitting on it.
Mm-hmm.
And something that should have been done sounds like years ago.
Yes.
But I hope it gets addressed.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're working on it. Whether or not that work is
right
gets
culminate
and get something done.
Right.
I should say maybe they're talking about it.
Right.
There is work being done in Illinois, but
right.
Whether or not those electric barriers are going to work for long term.
Yeah.
I think one of those things I think isn't in working order right now, so they've got to get that working.
Yeah.
But those are some topics that. Those are things that we're looking at down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a friend of mine that he was my first lieutenant in Bay City. He had retired from our division as our chief, Alan Marble, and once he became the chief, he was looking at these things that are going to affect our state 5-6 years down the road. And that's where the guys like myself, we don't necessarily have that aspect of what's coming on in the future. We know a little bit about it, but we're dealing with what's going on today.
What's in front of you.
What cases are going on, what violations are going on, what areas need an attention so that we don't have bigger problems.
Right.
But these are some huge issues for the state of Michigan that need to be addressed, and hopefully they'll get the money squared around and we can get some work done on those big items like that.
Yeah, no kidding. I meant to ask you when we started. Do you go by Officer Bob?
Ben
Lasher.
Ben
Lasher.
Yep.
Officer, CO, game warden.
I say Officer Bob. Can I get an Officer Bob here?
Just pick the most generic name and go with that.
Right.
That's all right. Just don't call me late for dinner.
You're right. That's what I always say. That's my line.
Just call me.
We were kind of talking about the Swan thing, but I wanted to know what caused you to decide to get into.
I don't know that I can put one thing on why I chose to be an officer. I went to school and went to college to be a teacher, and I like coaching. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to have to be a teacher because all the coaches I knew were teachers. So I assumed if I was going to be a coach, I had to teach, kind of thing. So I got into those programs at college, and I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do for 30 years. And my dad was a sheriff's deputy in St. Clair County for 30 years. So I grew up in a law enforcement home. Yep. We weren't we didn't have an extravagant lifestyle, but we had good insurance. The bills were paid. We had food on the table. So I knew it wasn't a position where I was going to get rich, but it would be something that I would enjoy, and I always thought it's a good thing to stick up for the little guy. And that's kind of what I think about when I'm when I'm working and protecting the resources, they don't have a voice. And a lot of people look at this as a victimless crime, where, an armed robbery, the victim is the person that got robbed. When someone takes something illegally from the resources, they don't look at it as a victim. The actual victim are the sports persons, men and women, who are putting forth the monies for that particular animal or fish to be managed so that our kids and our grandkids get to have the same opportunities.
Right.
So growing up with Dad as an officer, he had passed away when I went to school, so I didn't get to talk to him about it much. But I talked with some other deputies that I knew, and they got me in touch with a local officer, and he took me out on a ride along, and I went with him a few times in December during muzzleloader season when I was 19, and I thought that was pretty cool. This is what I think I want to do. So I changed majors, and I got a criminal justice degree from college, and got out of college. And it took me a little bit to get in, but I didn't give up. And so from 1993 is when I decided this is what I wanted to do, to 1996, roughly. So it took me 3 to 5 years, to get in. Mm-hmm. I had my first interview in 93. I didn't get hired. I didn't have my bachelor's done. I didn't have the police academy done. There were things that my resume wasn't quite complete. So when I got those things completed, I updated my files with the state, and I was able to stay on their hiring list. So when I got through with college, I got myself through the police academy. Those were things that I'm just more marketable. And if I'd listened to a lot of people, because we generally don't hire in big numbers. When I got hired in 1986, there were 9 of us that got hired together. Some of us were pre-certified, but were already officers, and we went straight into field training. And the other half of us hadn't gone through the police academy, so they had to go to the UP and went through an academy in the UP. Now, regardless if you're a certified officer or not, you get hired by our department. We put you through a 22-week academy at the state police facility in Lansing, and you live there Monday through Friday, and it's a very stressful situation for the recruits. But we get to see that person for 22 weeks if they can operate under a high stressful situation.
Yeah.
And it isn't cut out for everybody. Not everybody can handle the stress, and not everybody wants to deal with the discipline required to get through the academy, because they've got PT every day, they've got inspections every day, they've got college-level coursework, and there's always deadlines, there's always tests, because I call it stress inoculation. We have to be able to operate under a stressful situation in a bad situation, and if you're not inoculated to that stress, you'll never know if you can operate in that stress. So we can't point a gun at you to see what you're going to do in that situation, to see how you react in that stressful situation. We have to create a false stressful
environment.
Thank you. Yep. Environment. And you have to maintain high level of detail, discipline, and composure to get through that. So I'd listened to a lot of people. They said, "Oh, you'll never get in. The state's not going to hire you."
Yeah, they always tell you it's a tough one to get in.
I would have quit, and I never would have gotten in. But I didn't listen to those guys who told me I would never get in. This was my dream job for what I wanted to do. I would have been happy to be a deputy, in St. Clair County. That's kind of where I thought I was going to be after college, because I didn't get in the department. But once I got through the academy, I got hired part-time at the Sheriff's Department, and I got another interview, and I got hired by the state, and it's been pretty cool ever since. We don't have necessarily the same benefit packages as state troopers. We have the same authority. We're a uniformed law enforcement agency with the state police in the state. There are other multiple states where the DNR officers are actually part of the state police. I think Texas and Alaska. I'm not sure exactly what other states there are, but I know those two for sure are actually state troopers, and they just divvied off into the resource protection side of things. We are a totally separate entity of the state police, but we still have the same authority as the state police. So there's some shortcomings on our side because the state police have better benefit package, better pay than we do. But we do have better, or I shouldn't say better, we have more fun equipment to operate than they do.
Especially if you enjoy being in the outdoors and in that kind of environment, that's huge.
Yeah, so. I would see that. I could see how your quality of job would seem a little more gratifying.
Yes, this is not a job where you're going to get a lot of money.
Right.
You can pay your bills if you manage your money properly, but there are other fields I could have gone into where I would have not taken as much risk and would have been paid better.
Oh, yeah.
But I wouldn't have had that personal satisfaction that I get from being in the outdoors and talking with folks. I don't get to hunt and fish on duty. I do get permission.
And you're into that as well.
I'm sorry?
You're a big sportsman. You're
hunt
and fish.
Oh, yeah. I like to hunt and fish. Yep. It's like we talked earlier, when I'm doing a background investigation on an applicant and they don't have that background in hunting and fishing, I can't say they wouldn't do a good job, but there's definitely a difference between an applicant who has the background, they have the vested interest in the resource, because we don't have a time clock to punch. We're called flex employees. We work 80 hours every 2 weeks, and we don't see our sergeant every day. We might talk to our sergeant a couple times a week. We may not see him face to face for a few weeks at a time. We work alone quite a bit, probably 85% of the time. I'm by myself. And like today, my partner wanted to do a taxidermist inspection, and it was a bigger taxidermist. So in order to do a better job, we got to have two of us to look through the records, look through all the animals to be mounted, make sure everything's tagged properly. Well, he wasn't there, so we couldn't do it. So I worked 4 hours in the morning, came home. I knew I was doing this tonight, so I did some things around the house for a few hours. I typed up a report that I had to get done. I got that finished, and then I came over here. So my day has been broken up today, but I document what I worked on my daily report, and that, I'm probably going to have maybe a little over an 8-hour day possibly today. But when I work over 8 for today, I'll have a shorter day later in the pay period. So,
yeah.
Like tomorrow, I have a hearing at court, and tomorrow's supposed to be my day off. But I'm saving a few hours because today actually would be my Friday night. I'm going into my long weekend, so this would be for a normal person's Friday night. This is my Friday night. Well, because I know I've got this hearing in the morning, I've saved a couple hours, so I'll have some time to cover that. And a lot of our agencies, if you have court time outside of your regular scheduled hours, you get that for overtime. We don't have that. We don't get the luxury.
They don't give you a lot of overtime and stuff.
We have the flexibility to move our schedule,
right?
So that changes the availability for overtime. So it's a balancing act between I have flexibility to be able to do things that other people can't because they're on a shift, but I also don't get the money that they would get when they're off their shift. So it's a give and take.
So that was one of the things I want to touch on. If you have a typical day, and there's really no typical day. It's not.
There's not. Our job changes with the seasons, which is kind of nice because you get tired of dealing with one particular, let's say deer season. Growing up for me, opening day of deer season was a holiday for my dad and I. And my sons don't have that same feeling of opening day. It's just another day Dad's got to go to work. So
it's a long day.
It can be, yes. We do have, we have the flexibility to work around some of those things, but opening days in particular, we normally got to work.
Right.
So the benefit on the other side of that is I'm getting paid to scout, because if I can't find the game, I can't find the poachers. So when I do get a chance to go hunting and fishing,
You know where some good spots
I probably know where I need to be and when I need to be there because that's when those animals are there.
Right.
We'll take some notes when we're done with the podcast.
Well, I don't get that much free time to freelance, but it's one of those things where if you can't find a bigger buck, you're not going to be able to find the guy that's going to poach it because those are the trophies everybody's going to be after. And if you find a big bruiser out in a bean field in September, you kind of, that's my bait pile, and you're waiting for somebody to come take a poke at him.
Yeah.
So and the same thing with fish. And the problem with this past year, there were so many people catching so many fish. We would have a detail watching guys in plain clothes with our uniforms sitting back off the road waiting for somebody to leave with an overlimit of fish. There were so many people catching fish. The two guys that were doing surveillance couldn't keep track of who had how many fish.
Oh, jeez.
So they had to narrow it down to a handful of guys by what they were wearing because their clothes were identifiable, and we just stuck to what they were doing. And we ended up getting cases off of it, but normally you wouldn't have that many people catching that many fish.
That was no part of it.
It caused a little bit of grief on our end, but that's the work. And we have fishing year-round here in St. Clair County, be it through the ice or be it on a boat or be it from shore. But once deer season's over, we've got turkey season. This is one of the best duck hunting spots in the state, or on the flats. Goose hunting wasn't so hot this year. We didn't have a lot of corn crop here in St. Clair County, so we didn't have too much early goose. They did real well up in the thumb for early goose. But then after fall's over, we get into ice fishing, and I've got north end of Lake St. Clair. So I've got all that ice fishing activity. I've got all the motor guys that like to run their stuff fast down there at Fairhaven Access Site, making lots of noise with their machines. Mm-hmm. And then once ice is gone, I got more fishing in the spring, and then boating season starts. I got marine activity all summer, and then I'm back into the fall. So when I get tired of working at boaters and working with guys running around in their shorts drinking beers, I'm in the fall and doing something different again. So
changes with the seasons.
Exactly,
just like Michigan.
Change with the seasons, and it's nice that I'm not, because I don't feel I would be well suited to do the same thing for a straight year in and year out. I don't know that would fit me very well.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
I think it'd wear on anybody. Yeah.
I'm amazed at the spectrum of things that you guys cover.
Oh, we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, unbelievable. You were just saying, the guys in shorts drinking beer in the summertime, being out on the waterways and having to patrol that. I'm amazed that really, just for even this county, that there's only 3 of you. And then what I was thinking in my head was when you were describing, you have a day off. What happens if something crazy happens and, I guess, do they bring officers from different counties or whatever? I mean, say you're off and you're on vacation for a day and then that only leaves 2 officers for the...
If they're both scheduled to work. Like right now, one of my partners and I are both scheduled on the same weekend off. Mm-hmm. So and that's where we have other officers. We have 3 officers in Macomb County, which is more than we've had in the past. Same, we've got 3 in St. Clair again. So if there's something going on in St. Clair that we need somebody to go, we'll send somebody from Macomb.
Right.
Or if we can't get anybody from our district, the Sanilac County guys that report to Bay City office, they can come down and do what they need to do in the county if they need to.
Seems like a huge territory.
It is. And it's we're scratching the surface a lot of times of what's going on because we just don't have the numbers.
Right.
And like I mentioned earlier, we probably could write ticket to everybody we talk to because of the regulations. I mean,
right, and raise more revenue.
Not signing your license is a violation. It's a ticketable offense. Is it something I write? No, it's not something I write very often. Under the certain circumstances,
attached to other things.
Yes, sure. If you have 3 minor violations, you might get a ticket for one of those 3 minor things. If you've got 1 serious violation, you're probably going to get a ticket for that. Right. But it's. We also got to throw in Belle Isle. I didn't mention Belle Isle. We get scheduled down there.
Really?
Once a month, twice a month.
Is that just since the state picked it back up?
When we released it and became a state park.
Yep.
We rotate all our officers from the southern zone which is basically Muskegon across to Bay City and south.
All the way to Ohio.
Down to Ohio.
Wow.
All those officers in southern Michigan rotate and work on Belle Isle. Now, if you drive more than 2 hours, they put you in a motel overnight and you work 2 days back to back and you drive back. So that's a whole nother
world.
Entity.
Yeah, it's
like a special project.
It is.
For people that aren't local and don't know, Belle Isle is a small island off of the city of Detroit, which the state took over.
The
recently.
state leases it.
Okay.
I think it's been 4 years now.
From Detroit?
We leased it from the city of Detroit.
And it was that way before, and then didn't it shift or something? Because I know it kind of went downhill. It was a really awesome place, and then it went kind of downhill. Now it's really up.
It's always been the city of Detroit's island.
Okay.
The city ran it for years. Well, I can't remember the size of it, but it is the busiest park in eastern United States because of its location.
Really?
And we share enforcement responsibilities on the island with the state police. We have park rangers who work for Park Division who have enforcement authority in park property, but they don't carry guns or tasers. They have handcuffs and pepper spray, and they can write tickets for different things on state park property. But because of the city's reputation, and they don't carry guns, and the city of Detroit had their police department patrolling the island, they decided to put us down there with the state police, and we share responsibilities for patrolling that island and enforcing the park rules and general criminal stuff. When I go down to Detroit, I'm more or less a street cop down there.
On the beat.
There's a lot of fishing activity on the island.
Yeah, right.
But majority of things that we are encountering are general criminal stuff.
Right.
So
drug activity.
Drugs, drunks.
Yep. Thefts. Yep.
Thefts. We've had some car B&Es. There's been some CSCs that we've interrupted that have gotten involved in criminal sexual conducts. It's not the stuff that we normally deal with, and that's where we have to rely on our partners with Detroit Police Department. Mm-hmm. The DPD had come over and helped us in the past, and the state police have helped us
bigger events
quite a bit.
or whatever.
Big events. There's a
Jobby Nooner.
Well, the troopers haven't been to Jobby Nooner much yet, but they do help us on the car side.
Yep.
We arrested a drunk last summer on Jobby Nooner, and a trooper happened to be at the parking lot and got me to the agency to get the guy processed and the breathalyzer taken care of, which was a huge help. Because again, when I'm hauling my boat, I generally gotta haul a trailer, and none of that stuff fits in the sally port when I take somebody to jail. So I got to do something different than what everybody else has to do because my equipment doesn't fit.
Right.
And we don't take a lot of people to jail. We generally write somebody a ticket and set you on your way. Now, if there's extenuating circumstances or you're drunk or different things, if you're combative, those you're going to jail for that kind of stuff. But for the most part, day in and day out, I catch somebody in violation of something, I write them a ticket, and they're on their way. So we get back to the boat ramp, trying to figure out what my partner and I are going to do with this guy to get him to the police department for the breathalyzer. And here comes a trooper that I know pulled up. And they were working down that way just because of Jobby Nooner. And people that were drunk on the water are going to actually have to come to land eventually and drive their car. So they're looking for drunk drivers in the cars. And it just so happened it worked out. He was there when we needed a ride, and it worked out pretty slick. But I work with the Sheriff's Department. I work with the State Police. I work with Border Patrol. All those other agencies in the county, we're working hand in hand to get things done to catch the people that need to be caught.
Yep.
Because it's really, we're all looking for the same kind of folks, because if you break a general criminal law, you're probably not going to think too much about breaking a DNR law.
Right.
So there are those good people who probably wouldn't break. They won't break into your house. They won't beat you up.
But they might have too much to drink.
But they'll go shoot a deer when they shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
So not everybody I'm looking for are bad people.
Right.
But a lot of them are make bad decisions.
Oh yeah, some lack of discretion.
Yep.
If people are listening that might not be from the Michigan area, Jobby New Year's like the biggest party on the Great Lakes, probably.
Well, there's some big parties,
Yeah.
but that is the biggest one in this area for sure
yeah.
on Lake St. Clair.
It's
most
pretty,
definitely.
pretty wild.
Yes, it does.
And I just looked up Isle Royal, or not Isle Royal, Belle Isle. It's 982 acres. Well, it's pretty
yes,
big, pretty big park.
It's a good-sized park. And it's getting much better. We've had a lot of people come up to us and say that they're glad we're there because the island is safer for them to be there.
Didn't they reopen like the zoo and stuff? Oh, they have
no,
the aquarium.
Yeah, the aquarium's open.
Yeah.
There's a really cool freighter museum there, the Dobson Museum on the island. That's really nice to go to if you're a history guy or a history fan. Very neat history on the freighters on the Great Lakes and the Detroit River.
They probably cover the Edmund Fitzgerald
Yep.
and all that stuff because that was actually built in Detroit. And,
Yep.
Yeah,
there's some stuff actually from the boat there in the museum.
I remember that I was a kid the last time I was down there, but it is a great museum.
And then we have the casino down there, which is not an actual gambling casino, but it's a 2-story building it's mostly all marble. It's a beautiful building, and they rent that out for events. A lot of weddings, receptions, a lot of different types of events go on at the casino. And the fountain is beautiful. If you get down there in the summertime at night, they turn the lights on and that fountain's going at night. It's a pretty cool looking fountain. And then you get the Grand Prix, which is
big deal.
Another local controversy down there because there are a segment of the population down there that don't think there should be a race on the island. They don't like the monopolization of that east end of the island or that end of the island.
Sure, great, as crazy amount of revenue for the city and all that through the Grand Prix. Yeah, so I mean, you kind of have to.
Well, and that's the juggling act.
Right. Keeping people happy.
The contract the city of Detroit had lasted X amount of years, so the state has agreed to take on that contract with the Penske company because it's the Penske company that puts the race on, and they do a tremendous amount of work on that island. But the problem being is that it takes them 2 months to set up that race, and they got to change traffic routes. You've got a bunch of things that are closed off, and then actually on the race days, you have to have a permit to get into that end of the island because it's all closed unless you have a ticket to get in.
So a lot of logistics in that event.
Yeah, a lot of logistics, and I don't know the particulars on why the folks feel the way they feel about not having the Grand Prix, but it does bring a lot of revenue into the city and into the park that it wouldn't be there if we didn't have that event. So, again, it's a balancing act between what's getting paid for and what benefit is it doing for the rest of the community.
All right. Because you touched on that, the reputation that Detroit had for a very long time. And if you're not from the Detroit area, you might not know. We're beyond a comeback.
Knows.
It's beyond well, the reputation part, yeah, but Detroit is beyond at a comeback stage, I think. If you haven't been down there recently, that what's going on in the city, Belle Isle and all that stuff, it's really becoming a really awesome destination place to go.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
I see a different side of it because of working down there.
Yeah.
But I do go down there myself, and I do go to different events. But it is better. It's getting there, but it's still not
there
where we'd want it to be.
Right.
But it's come a long way in the last few years, which is good. It's kind of been revitalized. The downtown area especially has been revitalized. There's still a lot of
work to do.
A lot of folks down there are in pretty bad situations. But they're making the best of that situation, and hopefully they can get things turned around. But it's an interesting dynamic.
We all work down there, but you guys more work in the commercial right downtown, whereas I do residential.
Okay.
So I work out in the neighborhood. So when he's saying it's on a comeback, yeah, maybe on a small scale, but step outside that city.
Exactly.
And it's, hunting and fishing is less wilder than some of the households that I walk into down there. I mean, it's third world country.
Yes.
It's pretty unbelievable to see a major city have gone through something like that. And it is good to see that there's some rebuilding in the downtown, but I don't know.
That's just in the most inner city.
I don't know.
The downtown area is the big part. The outlies, the suburbs, it's kind of a small spot that's really on the comeback. The city itself's got a long way to go still.
I don't know how you fix generations and generations of poverty and uneducation and unemployment, and it's an entire culture. It's almost a different world.
Yes, and folks that don't live down there,
no idea,
don't have understanding of the way they live, the lifestyle down there. It's a whole different thing than what all of us that live up here in St. Clair County,
the suburbs and all that stuff. Yeah.
They don't understand.
Right.
It's a whole different way of life down there.
Right.
And some of it's better, some of it's good, some of it's okay, but there's a lot of it that's bad.
Right.
And that's why that we got to be down there.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bad things going on down in Detroit, and that's why we don't put our park staff out there to do enforcement on that island without a gun and a vest.
I understand that.
So,
God, the scope of work that you guys cover
it does blow my mind. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you really are. It almost seems as if you're doing 2, 3, or 4 jobs. Really.
Well, we are a jack of many trades, master of none.
Unfortunately. I was going to ask, if you had to put out a percentage when you're writing citations for hunting and fishing violations, how big of the percentage is people just not being informed and not knowing what they're doing?
Oh, boy.
That's a good question.
I would think it's a high percentage, right? Because I know that I've been in the wrong a couple times on the losing end of some scenarios, and it wasn't because I was purposely violating.
Right.
It's because I didn't take it upon myself to get educated and be informed, and it's your responsibility at the end of the day to know the legality.
Right.
And I feel that oftentimes, I've gotten much better at it in the last couple of years, especially the last year and starting this, because I want to be able to
educate their listeners.
Yeah, I need to know so that that I'm putting forth a good foot.
Right.
And really, until I got invested in this, it can take a fair amount of time to actually read that book and know, and things change annually, biannually, triannually, and to keep up with all that. So I just wondered, like, how much on a day-to-day activity where people are just like, well, I didn't know.
Right. Well, and that's the problem where I get lied to every day.
Yeah.
And I've gotten pretty good at reading character or being judgment of person's personality or their demeanor. But I get told I don't know a lot.
Right.
And obviously, because of my experience, some of those things are things that anybody should know.
Right.
Back when we had a baiting ban initially from the CWD.
Oh yeah.
What was that? 6 years ago.
That was probably a really big one that kept you guys busy.
I checked a guy he had an excessive bait pile, more than the 2-gallon limit that we had prior to the ban, and he was in the game area, and he was in a secluded spot. He got there by boat. He never expected to see me in there, and he claimed he didn't know that there was a baiting ban. Well, he just never expected to get caught.
Right.
So his excuse was he didn't know. I'm sure that I'm going to say 50% maybe uneducated as to what they are supposed to be doing, but the majority of folks know, and they just try to
get away with
it, or hopefully get a break.
Right.
A few weeks ago, I was checking licenses on Lake St. Clair, and I checked a gentleman. It was fishing, and he said, "Oh, I bought one." I'm like, "Okay." He said, "I can't find it." I'm like, "All right. If you give me your name, date of birth, I can run it through the computer on the radio, and I can find out." I did that. Came back, no purchases for 2017. So he was adamant that he'd purchased a fishing license. I said, "Hey, I get you. If you've got it, that's great. I'm going to write you a citation. If you find your license, bring it to the court, and the ticket will be dismissed." Obviously, to my knowledge, he didn't find that license.
Right.
I don't see any way around. If you run your license, it's in a database.
Well, there could be a mistake.
Okay.
Prior to the upgrade that we did a year or two ago, where they swipe your license now, your driver's license, they swipe that. So now there's no keystroke problems. Before, they used to enters that
User
in.
error.
Exactly. You go to a big chain store to a person working behind the counter that doesn't hunt or fish, but they're selling licenses.
Right.
They have no idea what you need.
Yeah.
And you tell them what you want, and they have to look at the book and try to figure out what code they have to type in.
Yeah.
Well, if they type in your driver's license number incorrectly,
off, right.
one number off,
right.
it won't come back to you in the computer.
So in Michigan, with the licenses you can buy online now, obviously, can you store the licenses on your phone in a PDF? Is that legal, or do you have to have a paper copy of the license?
Right now, the fishing license is the only one that we have to accept that way.
Right.
There is a
kill tags. You got to have.
Yeah,
a tag.
a kill tag.
Right,
you still
right,
have to
right.
have a tag, and if you can purchase it online,
yeah,
but
they'll
mail that to you for that tag. It's similar to the federal stamp. We can now buy a federal stamp for waterfowl hunting, and it'll show in our computer system that you purchased it, and then it will be sent to you, and you still have to affix that
and sign it.
And sign it to have a valid hunting stamp or fishing stamp or waterfowl stamp. Excuse me. But oftentimes, guys they've purchased it, but it hasn't gotten to them in the mail, be it got lost or they haven't gotten it out of the mail. Who knows why they don't have it with them? But it shows that they purchased it, so we're not going to write a ticket necessarily for that violation.
Right.
But it's the fishing license at this time is the only one that I'm aware of by statute that we can accept on your phone.
On a PDF.
On a PDF, yeah.
Do you know, because we just actually started hunting in a different state this last year. We hunt Michigan mainly, but we started to go down to Ohio for the deer hunting.
Yep.
And theirs is a little bit different. You don't have to have a physical kill tag on you.
Okay.
You just need to fix to the animal. Certain information is required. I mean, it could be on a yellow ribbon or anything that you have, or a piece of paper. And
you have to have your license number written on something.
Yeah, your license number, the date, and some other information, and have it on the animal. Do you know if Michigan's got anything like that in the works, or are they kind of that program's working for
Well,
them?
that's where we've got a directive, I believe, from the governor's office to make everything digital.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that's going to work. We're still trying to develop that system.
It's in its infant stage.
Yes, exactly. And I think Ohio probably has for deer hunting in particular, probably any big game animal in Ohio, I think you have registering requirements within a certain number of hours.
Yeah,
yes, 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. You have to call and report it, and then you get a confirmation number.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm assuming if we were to go in that direction, that would be a similar setup that we would have. But as of right now, the fishing license is the only thing that we would accept, or that we legally would accept on a phone. Now,
but with the sturgeon, you'd have to have that tag.
Right.
And stuff like that. So a fishing license, that would include sturgeon. And I think it's included with your fishing license now, too, the sturgeon tag.
It has been,
You just ask for it.
Correct.
It's a free tag.
Free tag. But it's a
purchase.
physical tag that you tag the fish with.
Correct.
Yeah.
The problem that we've run into with that is Fisheries Division was looking for statistical information as to how many people were targeting sturgeon. And if you were targeting sturgeon, you had to have your tag. So if you kept one.
Because it's one.
Exactly, one a year. You would put your tag on it. Well, what had happened is all the terminals would just print off a fishing license. They'd kick out the muskie tag and they kick out a sturgeon tag automatically. Even if you weren't going to target a sturgeon, you'd still get a sturgeon tag. So the statistical side of that free license is skewed because we were looking for people who were actually targeting them. Well, everybody got one. So the statistical side of that didn't work out so well.
Right. For tracking and
tracking,
right,
numbers and
yeah,
pressure.
When you tell somebody they're getting something for free, they're like, oh, yeah, why wouldn't I take
Yes.
it? I'm standing here.
I might catch one of those.
Yep. And if someone hasn't done it, it is an amazing thing to try and get one of those things up off the bottom.
And if you don't know, a sturgeon is a prehistoric fish.
Oh, yeah.
They live to be 80 plus.
Hundreds of years
old.
They're 120 years easily for a sturgeon.
They're cool.
That's crazy.
I only brought one to the boat once. I didn't land it, but I was actually pulling a crawler harness on the middle channel.
Yep.
And I thought I hit a snag and fought it ended up finding out with it tugging that it was a fish, and I fought it for 45 minutes on a very light pole and tackle, and Yeah, probably every about a 5 foot long. So it's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, but that again, St. Clair County, we have a tremendous amount of resources.
Right.
And those people who don't recreate,
You're right.
Don't get it.
They don't take the water for they take the water for granted.
Yeah.
And the float down is one of the things I see in particular. And the float down is an event that has started. It used to go every year when I did it when I was a kid. You get in you get in at the mouth and you come down underneath the Blue Water Bridge and you float down on an inner tube, and you get out in Marysville. Well, there was never any issues when we did it in the 80s. Well, then somebody got hurt, or I don't know exactly what happened, but it got stopped for a long time. Well, now it got brought back to life, and we have thousands of people that get in whatever kind of thing they can find that will float, and it's not appropriate, in my opinion, to be out there in a pool toy.
That current is pretty crazy.
That's what people do because they don't respect the water.
And for people that aren't from around here, the river is how wide?
Oh.
It changes at different
couple hundred
points.
yards.
Yeah. Oh, it's
varies. Yeah.
Half mile?
It varies. Yeah. I
mean,
would
up in
say
that area in general.
1,500 feet in different spots.
And
it's got the strongest undertow and strongest current of any water in the state.
Up to some spots up to 100 feet deep, right?
Or more.
We don't have many 100-foot spots.
No.
Not up in that area. I
Right.
mean, there's a couple 100-foot holes down towards.
Yes, there's some deeper holes in the south end, but up that way it's
What do you average?
45 to 60, depending on what's going on.
Net feeds, you have Lake Huron coming through the St. Clair River that comes out to Lake St. Clair, which is, I think we mentioned before, largest freshwater delta in the world.
Yeah.
And then down to the Detroit River again and out to Lake Erie.
Right.
Yep.
So it kind of.
Yeah, it flows in an unbelievable amount of water. So to
Yes.
be out there in a pool toy, just
It's-
thinking la-di-da.
It's terrible, terribly foolish for people to do that.
And we had that kind of. I guess it's kind of funny when we look at it, but it caused
Well,
a lot
you
of
get-
problems. People getting blown over to Canada.
Well,
that was
yeah.
the
2
year
years
before
ago.
last. Yep, we had
Year
them strong
before last.
winds, Yeah.
Yep. And what I saw, because the Coast Guard shuts the river down for all boating traffic
Oh, they do.
and all commercial traffic because they're concerned with somebody getting
Safety.
hurt by the boats.
Wow.
So the only boats that are out there are police and fire boats for
No
helping
kidding.
people for the most part. And
So the whole river gets shut down so everybody can go.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it isn't well. Most boaters don't like it
No, I wouldn't
because
like
it's
it.
sometimes it's the last hurrah.
Well, especially
Yeah.
if you're a freighter or something and you're trying to make a payload come through.
Well, and that's costing them money.
Or fishermen.
Right. Time is
that's
money.
where they like to fish. I've fished up there, right there by the Blue Water Bridge quite a bit. You
Yep.
know, for walleye. It's a great walleye spot.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Normally that time of day, it's not a fishing
Right.
issue.
Right.
More of a recreational boater problem because they close the river down at Black River, and nobody in Black River can get out. So if you want to get out, you got to go up to the cutoff canal. And if your boat is the right size to get out that, you can go out the lake that way. But there are a tremendous amount of people who don't respect that water.
Oh,
And that's why it's dangerous. If they had some respect for that water, they would have life jackets. They would have some type of a paddle that they could take care of themselves with or someone else. And they wouldn't be drinking as much.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of folks, I think, have this attitude that it is the Asabo or the Rifle River.
Right.
They're going up to have a float down, where if you get dumped out of your canoe or your tube, you can stand up and
Walk out of the
walk
river.
out of it. Well, that's not the situation up here in St. Clair River.
Oh, yeah.
You fall under that bridge, the undertow, you might come up down past the Black River, depending on what's going on. Knock on wood that we haven't had but one or two fatalities. We had the one young man pass 3 years ago, and people just don't respect that resource because they think they're going to go on a float down in a shallow water river for a lazy little float down, and that's not the environment that they're in.
All right. They're grabbing a
So-
case of beer and throwing on some water wings and hopping in.
Exactly. Those big swans
Yeah.
and the unicorn inflatable toys, those are the things that people jump on to float down that river. I had some guys in a 55-gallon drums strapped to a trampoline this summer. They won the Hillbilly Award because it was the most hillbilly
Yeah, I could
set
see
up.
I agree.
that,
That's pretty legit.
it was floating, and it looked comfortable. But by the time they got down river, I wish I would have gotten their names because they all probably got too much alcohol in them, and they left it. to get banged up and fall apart.
Appreciate
down
that.
there by the Moose Lodge.
Really?
Thanks for your litter.
Yeah, exactly. Great. And it's a big enough outfit, you just can't grab it and pull it out.
Right.
A tremendous amount of litter comes in that river.
Oh,
that
yeah.
day.
I mean, there's groups that volunteer and just clean up these people's garbage.
Yep.
And it happens and a lot of it probably we end up picking up Lake St. Clair. I know all of us, we're all boaters, and we get on the lake quite a bit all summer, and we're constantly picking up garbage.
Just even a cigarette butts. I watched somebody throw a cigarette butt over the side of a boat, and I just sit there and grind my teeth,
Oh, that doesn't just disappear. It's not like it's cotton candy,
Right.
One morning of walleye fishing, I got a 12-foot wood ladder and 2 life jackets this summer.
Oh, you did pretty good.
Yeah, it was nice.
No walleye,
life jackets.
Would you say, you said 20 years that you've been doing this?
I'm going on 22. Would
you say that you've seen people become less or more educated about rules and regulations in that period? Like, is the sportsmen of this generation more informed or less informed than when you started doing this job?
It's a toss-up. There are segments of those folks, like example, the quality deer management group. That's been a process now for probably 10 or 12 years, that organization being involved in Michigan. And there are a tremendous amount of guys who have educated themselves about habitat and white-tailed deer. There are still a lot of guys who go deer hunting who don't read the book like they should. And it's the safety concerns that need to be looked at more so than most of anything else, because that's the goal. The whole goal is to go have some fun. And when someone's got to go to the hospital, the fun is gone.
Right.
But you've got the information's there. And the interesting part about the younger generation is they go on these computers and they go on their smartphones, and they can pull this stuff up, and they can find it in
anybody
seconds.
Can find it. Right.
Exactly. Now, I'm in my mid-40s, late 40s. I'm not that savvy on my smartphone or my computer to find things that quickly, because I didn't grow up with that in my hand. So the interesting part for these younger generations is that information's at the palm of their hand if they want it.
Right.
And you've got those guys that are – I look at it as a maturity level. When we've started hunting, we want to get something. We want to kill something. Then we got to compete with our friends or our family, and we want to get something bigger or something better than what they got. And if we mature through this, we mature to the point where I think the ultimate maturity level for hunting and fishing are guys that go out hunting and fishing. They don't even have to get that particular game they're after to have a great day. They can go out and they can enjoy the sunrise. They can enjoy
the overall experience.
Right. And it isn't about taking an animal or some fish.
Right.
That to me is where guys have elevated themselves or matured to the point where they've achieved the highest level of outdoorsmanship or sportsmanship. And then if you get someone who has the opportunity to take a kid and get them an opportunity to get that deer, then you see the light bulb go off on that older person, and they said, "I think I got more excited than the kid did," type of thing. And I took that for myself. My oldest son, he's 17, and he got his first buck last fall.
Oh.
And I was with him, and I put him in my blind. I told him, well, there should be a down in this area. I'm on a ridge looking over a floodplain, and didn't use any bait this year. Didn't put any food plots in. I went back to letting this piece of ground be just what it used to be before I started hunting it. Because I grew up hunting this property, so I know the routes for the most part. But when I planted and I brush hogged, I kind of changed some of those routes. So I wanted to see if I didn't do anything different in that piece of ground, what it would do. So I put him in my blind, and I walked down to another spot, and I jumped a couple of does, and it had been a half an hour, 45 minutes, and he's not that big into hunting, so I knew if I could get an hour and a half out of him, we were doing good. So we got a later start. Because I knew if I put him out there at 2 in the afternoon, he's not going to stay till dark.
Oh, yeah. It can be tough.
Right around 5 o'clock, I texted him. I said, hey, you see anything? He says, yeah, I saw some turkeys and a button buck. So then not 5 minutes later, boom, come from that side of the blind. And I'm like, well, that had to have been him. So I said, what'd you get? And he says, where you at? Because I thought he shot the button buck. And he hasn't wanted to shoot antlerless deer because his younger brother shot a doe a couple years ago. So he didn't want to. He wanted to do something bigger and better than his brother. So it took him longer. He says, I shot a buck. I don't know how big it is, but I didn't have to count points. When he come out of the thick stuff, I knew it was a buck. Mm-hmm. So, okay, because I had multiple deer on camera that there weren't any monsters, but there were some deer that the boys would have been able to shoot. Mm-hmm. Nothing I really wanted to shoot, but you never know when somebody's going to walk in that you didn't know was there.
Oh, yeah.
But we had to track it. He didn't put the greatest shot on it, but he ended up hitting the liver, and we found it. And I think I got more excited about the situation than he did.
That's pretty cool. We're all new fathers relatively. I've got young kids, and I could tell you, I think even with the thought before I was even settled down to have a family, watching some of these hunting videos and these guys with these kids and their sons shoot them, I'd almost get a little emotional. I mean, it kind of touches something if you're a sportsman and you're into that stuff. Like, that is right there. That's about as good as it gets. Mm-hmm. You know, seeing the next generation get into it and get fired up about it.
Yeah, well, if you're getting bored fishing or whatever, take one of your kids fishing and watch how excited they get when they reel in a fish. I mean, you can't replicate joy like that in any other way.
Exactly.
A kid catching fish is like, I don't even know how to put it into words, man, how big of a grin they get on their face. Yep.
It's a lot of fun. But it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of patience.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be in the right frame of mind to get your kids out there because it can be a great day or it could be a very exasperating day.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to be in the right frame of mind. And I also think there's conversations that can be had in the game or in the deer hunting blind or the fishing shanty you'll never have at the dinner table.
No.
But you'll have a conversation out there with just you and your kid.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't going to talk about some of the stuff you'll talk about at dinner table.
Right.
So anybody out there that's got some young kids, don't miss the opportunity to get them out and have them experience it. Like I mentioned, my boys don't have the same connection to opening day that I had. But they've been exposed to more stuff in the outdoors than I was. So
it drives me up a wall when people say, "Oh, these kids nowadays are lazy. All they want to do is look at their phones and play video games." No, that's not the truth. It's that they haven't been exposed,
correct,
or had it put out in front of them. Because I just don't see it. I just don't see kids that are like, I don't like that. I mean, yeah, all kids are different, and there might be that one kid who doesn't want to do it, but for the most part, when people generalize as, oh, these young kids are all lazy nowadays and all they want to do is sit and play video games, I don't think that's the case. I think that's it's the parents' failure to expose these kids and have the time to do these things with these kids.
Exactly.
It drives me up a wall.
Because it's not – the kids haven't changed. No. Kids are kids. The kids are no different than when we were kids. You'll take advantage of your whatever you can. If mom and dad will let you sit there and watch an idiot box all day long, you're going to do it.
Right.
If I was a kid and my dad would have let me watch comics all day, I would have watched comics all day. The parenting has changed.
Yeah.
Kids are kids.
Product of their environment, basically.
Exactly. Right. Product of their environment. And, I play some games. I can't knock that too bad. I do enjoy playing video games, but it's not the focus of my day, obviously. There are people that make a living playing those things. But when you listen to my other son is 15, and I'll sit and watch him play, and he's talking with his buddies, and you think he's just there playing by himself, but he's not. He's hanging out with his buddies. They're just doing it through a headset. Mm-hmm. And when we would ride our bikes to hang out with our friends, they don't do that now because they hang out with the things on their heads like we have. They're still hucking it up. They're still picking on each other. They're still having that relationship that we had They're just not doing it face to face.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. There are a lot of people who aren't exposing their kids to these things because they don't maybe have the patience to take them out. And when I would just take both my boys out together, I did it a few times, and I'm like, no, I'm done doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm taking them out one at a time because there's too much bickering, and I don't get to have any fun.
Well, I mean, as far as getting outdoors, you can't replace that with anything digital or anything else. It's like the core of who we are is being out in the outdoors, whether you're just hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, just anything outdoors. It's kind of it's at the core of every person, I think.
Right. The parenting thing's an interesting thing, and we could parlay it into something. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but we were talking about it before we started recording, and obviously last week was another tragic school shooting. We could probably touch on it with you here being in law enforcement. I have an opinion that I've thought for a while since I've had a kid. My kid's going to be 3 this year, so I'm a relatively new parent still. But what we were saying about parents not having the ability, maybe it's for lack of effort, they get their kids out to do these kind of things. But I've almost felt that there's a bit of almost a social frowning upon nowadays to be a great parent. I find that, if you're not working tons of overtime and committed to your job and you're not, in there every day working harder than the guy next to you, there's almost like this social thing where nobody's getting rewards for being a great parent nowadays. And it kind of drives me crazy. My wife's a working mom, and they give them nothing. Like working mothers that are trying to make a career or maybe do a maternity leave, I just would have been really aggravated and frustrated by the support that our government and our community puts into being a parent nowadays. And I'm wondering if that is a start of why we're starting to see these things with kids not being responsible for themselves and outcry. I mean, it kind of comes down to that, right? There's obviously the mental health issue is a problem in this country. Accessibility, you can argue accessibility, yes or no, to firearms. But at the end of the day, it's parental responsibility that we're raising these kids. And it's nothing that I ever paid attention to until I had a kid of my own. But when I call into work and say, hey, I got something going on with my kid, yeah, well, maybe we care. Or maybe you should care and make us, make the money that you're supposed to make.
In the name of progress, right.
And I feel like we're starting to see the repercussions of that in this country of not investing in being parents.
No doubt it's a culture thing, a shift, and yeah, I think it almost in a way it's a village to raise a kid. Not that everybody should be raising each other's kids, but
right. It's
the way our culture is, and a lot of the stuff that is mainstream nowadays. There's a lot of negativity. There's good things with social media, but then there's bad things. Just what is when we were growing up as kids. Not to get too far off on it, but what you'd see on television is even just in your not even your cable channels, but just basic television,
right,
is way different.
Right.
They accept what's acceptable for
right.
kids to watch, and commercials and just everything that's suggested to them. It blows my mind nowadays that watching normal television, you'd want to cover your kid's face, and you're not watching like HBO or Cinemax. Right. You're watching Channel 7.
And well, we've said before on here, sometimes we use some strong language, and my thought is, if your kid knows how to download this podcast, we're the least of your problems.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the stuff that they have access to through just picking up a smartphone nowadays, and he's 100% right. That influences kids. My son was 2 years old, and he started watching this little program where one truck turns evil, and then the other truck is good, and they race around, and then the bad one smashes this one, and then he's at school smashing some kid with a truck, and I'm a bad backhoe, and it's like, dude, I would have. And my wife warned me.
Was that me that time? I don't know.
Yeah, my wife warned me. She's like, he shouldn't be watching that, and I'm like, I think you're being a little bit. And then, sure enough, she was right. I was like, yeah,
Well,
it really affects them.
The kids aren't kids very long.
No, not as long as they used to be.
When they're exposed to the things that they can be exposed to, if they choose to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
My mom used to say garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
You put garbage in your brain, you're going to get garbage out your brain. And kids they don't get to be kids as long as we got to be kids. They're dealing with social aspects of life in junior high that we were only thinking of
in high school. Right.
So they're maturing faster, they're exposed to more, and the violence that they have. We watched The Roadrunner. You guys probably watched Bugs Bunny and The Roadrunner, and you guys aren't that much younger than me. But
no, yeah, we grew up on that.
The violence in The Roadrunner is nothing compared to the violence that you do in these games. And there's so many aspects to what created that problem in Florida. It isn't one particular thing that you can say that's what did it. There's a huge amount of different things that came into play that created that problem. And taking one of those things out of that equation isn't necessarily the best answer, but seems to be the answer that a lot of people want to do.
Well, everybody wants an easy fix.
They want an easy fix.
And there's not one.
And the mental health issue in this country is not an easy fix.
No, it's not.
And I don't believe that banning a gun is an easy fix necessarily.
No.
There's a lot of things, depending on how they go about it, that can be very problematic. I saw some folks on social media that wanted to change some things, and okay, if you look at it that way, you're going to change the Second Amendment. So in order for the government to be able to get those weapons, you have to change the Fourth Amendment for search and seizure. So then, if that doesn't work, or you don't like the outcome of that, and the NRA possibly, or whatever group that you may not like, is pushing to change the laws back, then are you willing to change the First Amendment to stop them from talking and have that propaganda, or they're selling their story? The Constitution has been a great document for a long time, and I really don't see a need to change the document, but there's a lot of things in our culture today that we can do better at, and raising our kids is one of the huge things.
Well, I think Ryan kind of nailed it too when he said that it takes a village. I think there used to be a lot of repercussion at a local level when neighbors knew each other.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And, the dad would call over to the other dad and say, hey, guess what I heard your kids say?
Yep.
And nowadays, people are so busy, if you got both parents working, that you don't even know your neighbor sometimes.
Right.
Often.
My wife, she was a teacher before she was a stay-at-home mom. And the big thing that she noticed and I noticed is you get in trouble at school and you're basically getting whooped. Your parents are going to discipline you.
Right.
Nowadays, in a lot of situations, she would find out is the parent would come attack the teacher, basically saying it's your fault. There's no way my kid did this. You know. So I think it's a combination of that. Parents not properly disciplining their kids anymore, and there's definitely
that personal responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I go talk to hunter safety classes, most of those kids are 10 to 13 years of age. There are, some older kids, but some adults in the class. But for the most part, they're younger kids. And they haven't necessarily been exposed to police officers. And they're doing what mom and dad tell them to do. And I had to explain it to them, okay, once you turn 17 in the state of Michigan, you are now an adult in the eyes of the court. And if you make a mistake and you're an adult, I don't have to take you home to talk to mom and dad.
Oh, yeah.
You have to go by what mom and dad's rules are when you're at home. But once you get out of home and you get out from underneath mom and dad's authority, now you're going to fall under my authority and the police authority, and you have to be a relative good citizen, follow the laws to be a good citizen, or you get the attention from law enforcement officers.
Right.
That's a big thing too nowadays. When we were growing up, I could say huge respect and I'd say even a healthy fear of law enforcement, you know, of not wanting to mess up. And nowadays, there's just an overall, you know, I don't want to generalize either, because there's a lot of great kids and a lot of good youth. But I would say from when we were growing up, there's probably a more defined lack of respect, and you know, for the laws and law enforcement and all that, and it puts a lot of law enforcement people. I mean, it's a tough place to be. It's different nowadays.
Well, there's a general lack of respect for everything.
Just everything. Yeah, I hate
that same kid isn't going to respect me, isn't going to respect the elderly person that may need a hand at the grocery store,
or their own parents.
Their own parents, and that's the problem. Where we get back to is the parents didn't teach them to respect the parents.
Right.
The parents let the kids run the roost, and it doesn't turn out well.
Oh, and the whole thing, like, respect your kid's privacy. When you're a kid, you really don't have a whole lot of privacy. You should be a nosy parent.
Exactly.
You should know exactly what your kid into. I'm not going to let my kid lock his door, and I'm not going to monitor what he's watching on TV or social media.
Skynet in my house,
My
man.
kids aren't going to be on Facebook, you know, and they're kids. You know, they don't belong on things like that. Or if they are, heavily monitored. So, I mean, be a nosy parent.
And you guys have younger kids. When my kids were coming up, junior high was the time that they wanted phones, because that's when they started getting them. Well, now they're getting kids in 4th, 5th grade that have smartphones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Elementary schools have phone policies.
Yeah. And my personal opinion is kids that age shouldn't have a phone.
No.
Right.
The cost of investment and loss, my money is worth more to me than to give a kid that age a smartphone.
And there's other options too nowadays, because they're understanding there's a change in shift in culture and just kind of like, I don't know, standards, I guess. But you can get the kids watches that you can call their parents, or you know, which I guess nowadays there's a lot of bad things that are happening, or more attention on them, you know, with kids and abductions and stuff like that, where people want to keep a closer eye on them. I can understand that.
Oh yes, there is a tether part of that.
Yeah. Put them on a leash. You know, they
put
got
on
the
a leash.
little bungee leash.
I remember having that when we were kids.
Now it's an electric leash.
Yeah. That's funny. You see people walk around Disney World with their kids on a leash.
Well, I only bring it up just because it's concerning to me. You know, my kid's going to be going to school, and his daughter's going to school now. And you said they would, doing shooting drills, right?
Yeah, they have
Active shooter.
Yeah, I forget what term she used for it in school. But
Alice?
where they lock the doors, shut the lights off, make all the kids. She's in kindergarten right now.
Lockdown.
In kindergarten.
And she comes in.
That's
the
horrible.
first day she came home, she's like, "Oh, we had there's somebody bad in school, so we had to hide." Well, it was just a drill. You know, we got the email, but they don't tell the kids that. You know, so. It's like, God damn.
Yep.
It was a terrible feeling in my stomach, you know, when your little 5-year-old girl comes home and tells you she was hiding at school.
And again, they don't get to be kids.
Right.
We're taking the childhood away because of the safety concerns.
Yep.
And we just got done doing laser training for our officers. It's active shooter training. And the goal for us, if we are responding to an active shooter, is to get to that person that's shooting people and get holes in them as fast as possible. We're going past downed people. We're going past people we could maybe give medical attention to. But every second that I stop and help someone, they're shooting somebody else. So our training, and it's pretty much a standard for the state of Michigan. I'm guessing it's going across the country because this is a FEMA class. When you respond, even if there's only one officer, you get in there and you get to that person that's doing the shooting, and you get them occupied with you. Yeah. You get shooting with them, so they're not shooting innocent people.
Right.
And that's where your daughter is going through a situation to save her and her classmates, but when we were kids, we didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
We were freaked out by a tornado drill.
Go in
the hallway and stick our head between our knees.
No, it wasn't a thing that I was aware of. I mean, was Columbine the first big one? And that was...
Well, that's the biggest one that I think
that was kind of the one that... Right. Because school shootings have always happened at some level.
Right.
But there's like this...
that was the big one that kind of kicked
outbreak
off.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it is the exposure that's the social media and the news and putting them out in front of everybody. And I don't know, man, it troubles me. And I kind of was just, with you being in law enforcement and you being curious about what, you know.
There's no like I said, it's similar. I correlate it to wildlife management. The pheasant numbers here in Michigan used to be quite high back in the 40s, 60s.
Oh yeah.
We had some
This
really
area,
good. This area had some great pheasant hunting back then. We missed it because the birds were gone. We lost the habitat. Now some people blame the DDT, the chemicals that we're using for fertilizer or for the roads at the time. They blame that for killing off the pheasants. Or they blame the farmers for cutting down all the field rows. Or they blame all the predator birds. We got too many owls, too many hawks. Well, they all want to blame one particular thing. And that one particular item didn't change the pheasants.
Right.
It's a totality of circumstance.
Right.
All those things added together reduced our numbers. Now there's more pheasants in the city of Detroit than there are in probably St. Clair County.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
When I've gone to the island a few times, just before I go over the bridge, I'll see roosters in the grass pecking.
Red fox. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wildlife actually in the city.
Yeah, I haven't seen any roosters on the island itself, but over in the city, there's a lot of pheasants in the city of Detroit because they've got feral cats and they've got a couple coyotes. They don't have anything else, and they've got a ton of cover.
Right.
So they have the habitat.
So much long grass.
Long grass. They love that long grass.
Like a jungle, really, down there. I mean, there's a lot of overgrown things.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, and when you get up, too, on the rooftops working downtown and look down, it does look like a forest. I mean, there's a lot of trees in the city and a
lot more green space now.
Yes, there is. There is. And there's a lot of overgrown lots, vacant lots and stuff like that are – I mean, nature's kind of taken back over some of that stuff. It's kind of crazy to watch.
Some might view it as a progressive city then.
I guess so.
But that's where you correlate that to our problem in Florida. There's no one answer. There's a totality of things that came together to create that environment. And by removing one of those things, it may be the simple answer, but it's not going to correct the problem. And that's where the pheasant management, you got to have the grasses. You got to have food. You got to have cover. Once you remove one of those elements, then you're going to lose habitat. And it's the same kind of thing with the situation in Florida where if you remove the gun out of the situation, yes, that would maybe alleviate him shooting people, but he's still going to commit violence. And how do you stop a violent person from committing violence? That's a whole other ballgame. And I don't think we got the time tonight to talk about that.
Take them hunting and fishing.
Right.
But that's the thing. They've got the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the mental health issues in the country. There's a ton of things.
Community, the parents. I mean, there's a lot of different variables.
Because, if I take a kid home, most of the time I get a pretty decent response because I treat people the way I'd want to be treated. If you want to cuss at me and call me bad things, then I can be a jerk. I can I can go there if I need to, but I personally don't go there on my own. And I don't believe most officers are doing that either. We all have bad days, and you might have caught somebody on a bad day, but you take a kid home for doing something, maybe they're riding their dirt bike in the road, and you take them home, and mom and dad are, well, Johnny wouldn't do that. Well, why am I standing here with your kid if I didn't catch him in the road with the dirt bike? That's the problem teachers have, because my wife's a teacher. I hear about it. Well, my kid wouldn't do that. Or why isn't my kid getting better grades? Well, are you helping that kid at home? Are you doing the homework with that kid? Are they turning in their work? Are you pushing them to do their homework? Are you teaching them to respect your teacher, to listen in class? She's in the elementary school, and she's had a couple students over the years. She's had to evacuate the 25, 26 kids out of the one room because the one kid's having a meltdown.
Oh, yeah. My wife used to do that all the time, and she's trying to teach the rest of the class, but she can't.
You can't.
It's crazy.
And they don't give them their costs. They're reducing the staffing levels, so they don't have the parapros to help the teachers. It's just a nasty little tornado, and there's a lot of elements in that argument,
right?
And hopefully we can get something started. And I support the Second Amendment, but I also am realistic in the idea of
gun control
and who should have what. With the HIPAA laws that we have, the privacy for people's medical records, how do you take someone who's being treated for a mental illness that's on these nasty drugs and put them in a database so that the gun people can see that? And if a person went to Gander Mountain or to Cabela's to purchase a gun, right now those computers don't link up to medical records. So there's a ton of people out there who are on these medications that shouldn't have a gun, but there's no way for the people selling guns to find out that information.
Right.
So that's one aspect of that nasty little thing down there. There's just a ton of those things that come into play, and there's always somebody's going to politicize the agenda.
Right.
Without even going into it too much more, the guns, there's no way you're going to eliminate all of them. And I think that having a firearm in the hands or possession of a good, law-abiding citizen that's sound of mind is a good thing. There's no reason they call it peacekeeper, a great equalizer.
Exactly.
You can prevent a lot of bad things from it. It's just, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need any guns, I guess, or I guess maybe we just kill everything with spears still when we're hunting. I don't know, but it's just a fact of the way it is now. And I've always talked to my wife about it, and I think that, and not everybody feels the same way, but to tell good people that you can't carry your gun in certain places because that's the way the laws are and stuff like that, well, the bad guy's going to do it anyways, and then that's those soft targets and stuff like that. So I don't know. You could talk all day long about gun control and all that, and
criminals don't usually follow signs.
No, yeah,
they don't heed the warnings very well.
No, they don't.
But I could talk.
Well, that's okay. It'll work us into the next thing that I want to talk about, and that is like the general public, more specifically public opinion. I know it's something that affects your day-to-day job. Biologists, everybody throughout the state that I've talked to, I don't know if it's a big problem or just a small problem, but I see a lot of times nowadays that a lot of decisions are being made not solely based on scientific facts. Does public opinion weigh more now on decisions being made than it used to? Do people have a louder voice? Because we were talking specifically when we sat down about like what happened with the sterilization of deer over in Ann Arbor, which to us all sitting here right now who are informed about wildlife seems absolutely ridiculous.
Absurd.
Yeah. It would seem to make sense to me to let hunters buy special licenses under special regulations, invest money into the system, come in, solve some of the problem with the numbers,
Provide good food for some people, donate the food,
provide money into the system, but no, instead we're going to use, I don't know if it was taxpayer dollars or where the funding came from.
Yeah, I don't know.
But instead they decided that they're going to sterilize a wild animal.
Correct.
And it just seems like an absurd decision, and I've seen more, maybe it's just that I'm conscious and I'm paying attention to these things.
And I think that's more humane. Isn't it? It's still a life. If you're sterilizing, it's a life that's not going to be there. You know what I mean? How many more lives if you're actually using our renewable resource and using it properly as a hunter and a sportsman, and you're doing everything ethically? How could it really get any better than that?
Well, what I was getting at is that there's a very small percentage of the actual population that does hunt and fish. And I believe that number keeps getting smaller.
It keeps getting smaller,
and we're not the only ones that vote for, these laws and regulations. And so I just wondered how difficult that makes it at your level sometimes to do your job when the public outcry is something that does not make any sense at all in the name of science. But when the job needs to be done, you've got to combat that.
Yes. With the technology we have today, everybody's got a camera in their hand. And as you guys have seen in the videos that have been published over the social media or wherever, you see the last 15 seconds of a bad situation. You have no idea what happened the first 20 seconds, minutes before that video started, but you see the officer being the bad guy because they've got to respond to the violence that was brought to their table. And the public perception is the officer's the bad guy because that's who's being violent in the video. They didn't get to see the chance of possibly the suspect being the instigator in the situation, and the officer has to try and control that person. But there's in '98, I believe, when we passed Proposal D or G, where we were going to regulate the management of the wildlife by scientific base. I do see a few things that look to be more culturally acceptable things that dictate how things are going, because I believe our department gave permits to the city to do that. I'm not positive of the
scope or whatever,
the logistics of how that all came about, but I think our wildlife division was involved in the permits for them to be able to do that with the wild deer, because we are managers of the wild herd, regardless of where they're at. We're the ones that manage those deer. So I believe we issued the permits for them to do this. So the catch in all this is that I have to maintain the proper image for the department. Now, what I think personally doesn't always matter, because I have to maintain the department's good standing.
Sure.
So there are some things that I feel are maybe dictated by the wrong things, but it's more of what's socially acceptable. And it's similar to years ago on Lake St. Clair in particular. It was an issue because our bass fishing is so good, and you couldn't attempt to take a bass out of season. You couldn't fish for them. And there's a certain way to fish for bass. There's a certain way to fish for sturgeon. There's a certain way, different methods, presentations for certain types of fish. Well, if you caught somebody that was attempting to take bass out of season, we could write them a ticket. And some of our officers in Macomb County years ago would do that, because we had guys going out early when the season's closed to let those fish reproduce, and they were targeting the fish on the beds because they're very protective of those beds. It can be very good fishing. But the fishing public, or the bass fishing public, wanted to have more opportunity. It wasn't based on scientific, research. Scientifics would say we need to protect those fish so they can reproduce, so they can protect their beds, so we have better reproduction. If you pull them off the bed, that's where they saw the video from, I think, Minnesota, where the gobies were coming in within seconds eating on the eggs. So the department changed the regulations to provide more access for bass fishing. So now we have a catch and release season, and it wasn't so much based on a scientific scale of things. It was more on what is more socially acceptable. The biologists have said, apparently, and I can't get into too much of the biology of the things because that's not what I do, but there are tactics used to catch fish that don't affect the reproduction of those fish. And if it doesn't affect the reproduction, the Fisheries Division is confident that they can let people have more opportunity, and it doesn't hurt the reproduction, which is great. If that's the case, that's great. But now we've had the catch and release for a few years, and the fishermen are saying they're not catching as many big fish. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the catch and release season. It's my observations, and it's from what I'm being told. And again, you can't put your finger on one thing. Is it a habitat situation? Are the water temperatures not exactly the right temperature for the fish to spawn? Is there more smaller bait fish that are eating on the eggs? There could be any number of things that are changing the reproduction for those fish. But there are some things that I have seen that are it's more what's socially acceptable, because it doesn't affect the numbers for the reproduction. So we liberalize it a little bit to provide more opportunity.
Right.
And that's where there is some frustration when things are changed, and it doesn't always add up for us. But again, I don't have a biology background, so there are things that they know more about than I do, and they have an educated background in that particular activity. So it's not my place to say they're wrong.
Sure.
But it's just my personal observations as to what's going on.
Right.
And that's an interesting thing also, where I talk to the kids at Hunter Safety and the parents that are in the room, is we all have an opportunity to talk to the Natural Resource Commission, and that's the governing body of what the DNR does here in Michigan. And we all can have 3 or 5 minutes, depending on what you sign up for, to present whatever it is that you want to see changed or what you want to see from our department. Excuse me. And obviously you're going to carry more weight if you represent a large group. You know, MUCC, for instance, represents all the conservation clubs across the state of Michigan.
What's the MUCC? I'm sorry.
Michigan United Conservation Club. I'm a member. You should be too.
Yeah. Okay, I know. I've heard that before.
But they represent a large number of sportsmen here in Michigan. So they have a lot of power in the fact that they present something to the NRC. The NRC takes it very serious because they're representing so many people in that same related field. You know, the Sportsman's Club. I think I was at Blue Water Sportsman's for the last hunter safety class. I think they've got 5,000 members, maybe not that many. I can't remember exactly, but there was multiple thousands of members at Blue Water Sportsman. So if someone was to go to the NRC and represent Blue Water Sportsmen, they're representing a couple thousand people.
So it carries some weight.
Yep. And, you know, if we went there individually and said, I don't want to have any hunting in Wednesday afternoon for red squirrels.
They're like, okay. Yeah.
They're going to say, okay, thanks for your time. Yeah. There's
who's this guy?
One guy is not going to get a closure on one day of the week in the afternoon for a particular species. But if I was to carry the weight of a couple thousand sportsmen, then it might be more of a debate. But it's the Natural Resource Commission is the governing body, and Wildlife Division, the Fisheries Division, they make up the regulations. The NRC approves them or not, and then they come to us to enforce. Law Enforcement Division doesn't get to make the laws. We sometimes can make suggestions, but we're not the ones that make them up. We're just the ones that enforce them, given to us from the other divisions.
Sure.
But that's where there are some legislative things that pass, like the trophy buck law we had pass a couple years ago. The extra penalties for recreational trespass when taking a deer, the restitution has gone up for taking a buck, 8 points or more. Those were legislative changes.
And then allowing the trail cams to be used too, for I think if it's time dated stamped, that just recently changed. That for trespassing or whatever, you can get that for fining people.
Oh, really?
I guess that's a newer law.
Well, we haven't. A photograph's always been admissible if you can identify the person in the photograph.
Okay.
I don't know of a particular change for trail cameras in particular, but you can always use camera or a video for evidentiary purposes for court,
Gotcha.
as long as you can identify who it is that's in the video.
Right.
If you've got a real poor quality picture, or you don't have a picture of their face to identify them, it's not worth any good to you. But
that's why you need an extra trail cam. Get good quality images.
Yes.
Video.
We're waiting for a drop here, a product drop.
Got to pay somebody.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So that does. I mean, socially, social culture and all that has an influence and an impact on regulations and stuff like that.
Definitely. Well, you guys were talking about something fascinating when I walked in here, and that's what kind of got me thinking about it. And it hits two things: one, public opinion, and two, invasive species. Is the swans here in the Great Lakes area, and they're a beautiful looking animal, but they're non-native. Am I correct?
Correct.
And they're very damaging to the native species here.
Yes.
And so something has to be done with their numbers to be controlled, right?
Correct.
And there's no hunting season for them?
Correct, because there are enough tundra swans that are intermixed in with the mute swans that cannot be identified at hunting distance.
Right. And that's our natural.
That's our native species.
Yeah. Tundra swan.
Tundra and trumpeter swans. Yep. I believe the tundras are mainly in this fly zone. Trumpeters are more on the west coast, I believe.
Okay.
But they have a black bill, and the mute swans have an orange bill. Well, at a hunting distance for bird hunting, you can't tell what color bill that bird has until it's right close to you. So the federal government doesn't allow folks to hunt mute swans in Michigan because of that problem.
Sure. I find that something to be argued because you're looking at taking female and male birds of different species, different limits and all that stuff, and you have to identify these birds. So I'm thinking, I mean, and you've got snow geese that are in there.
Right.
So,
but that leads into why, probably more likely why, there isn't a hunting season too. A lot of people have no idea that you guys control numbers, right? And they would just absolutely have an aneurysm if they did.
Right. Well, and that's where, again, we have the public perception of what a mute swan is, which the public, unknowingly think they're a great little bird.
Yeah.
Until they get attacked by a bird on a jet ski.
Oh, yeah.
Or they get a small kayak or a dinghy. They're very aggressive in the spring when they have their babies. You get somebody that's been pinched or whacked with one of their wings, they might not have such a high regard for a mute swan. But the hunting public generally understands the problem that mute swans bring to our marshes and our lakes. And because we don't have a hunting season on them, they have no natural predators because they're the biggest thing in the marsh. So if humans don't control them, they're going to spread and continue to grow and be a problem. So our department contracts the Department of Agriculture, Wildlife Services, and they come out and they do some control techniques on the mute swans. And we've done a fair number of that over the years. Well, now we're doing a study, and that's what I was talking about before we started. I assisted a researcher with my airboat on the lake to retrieve some GPS units from mute swans that he'd put on. He'd collared these birds, and these collars have a solar panel on them that runs this GPS unit. So as long as it's showing up on his screen, it's getting sunlight. So it's above the ice. So he had multiple units that were not moving on the lake. So we're assuming they were on the frozen surface. So they were out in the area where you had to have an airboat to get to them. Well, I have an airboat, so I was able to get out there. And these units cost $3,000 a piece. So he was happy to be able to retrieve. I think we got 4 of them that day. And he had a couple other birds that were freshly passed of natural causes. These are all natural causes, deaths, as far as we know. And he's going to take some of the fresher birds back and do necropsies on them to figure out what the cause of death was. But we're the researching them here on Lake St. Clair specifically to see what the best method of control is. If it's oiling eggs, if it's using guns to reduce the numbers.
Oiling eggs?
Oiling eggs. If you oil eggs, I believe it's vegetable oil, it weakens the shell to where the fetus in the egg doesn't develop.
Okay.
But it doesn't break when the bird sits on it, so the bird doesn't relay. Because if you just broke up the eggs or remove the eggs, the bird will relay a bunch of eggs.
Interesting.
Huh. So if they oil the eggs, they do this with cormorants also.
Okay.
Cormorants
are
a fish-eating bird, and they decimate perch. Perch and bass, pretty much, are their main diet. And we've been oiling eggs on the St. Mary's area up there, east end of the UP. And because if we just destroyed the nests, they're just going to re-nest.
Yeah.
So they've developed this process where you shake the egg or you oil the egg, and they do the same thing with Canada geese. We have a lot of inland lakes that have too many geese for the comfort of the residents, and you have folks that want to get rid of these geese. So when there's agencies or there's businesses out there that will round these birds up when they're in molt and they can't fly, and the problem is with the Canada geese, they remove them and they transport them somewhere else, but next year they come right back because they like to use that same body of water. But we're studying the mute swan and the movement of the mute swans to see what the best method of control is. And hopefully when he gets his studies figured out and gets his work done, we'll have some better scientific data to show us what the best method of control is.
And impacting that method of control is not just what is the best method, but it's what's socially acceptable. You know what I mean? To be the best method, that actually has a play in it.
Well,
and that's kind of crazy.
On something like that, you guys kind of fly under the radar, right?
Well, we have to pick to a certain point. We don't want to go out there on a busy day,
right, and
shoot swans. Obviously for safety reasons, but also for the public outcry of us shooting swans.
Right.
Some people think they're the greatest critter around.
Right.
They're not, but that's how some people feel.
Yeah, they're very territorial with like native bird species too, if I'm correct, right? They'll destroy nests and
they'll kill baby duck mallards. They'll kill baby goslings. On St. John's Marsh, a large game area here in southern St. Clair County, I've noticed they removed 4 swans from the game area, and the next year I had 6 or more broods of goslings from Canada geese that would never nest there before because of the mute swans.
Oh.
So it's a significant amount of territory that the swans will control.
Right. Well, hell, if we're grown men and we're scared of them,
yeah.
What chance does a bird?
Yeah, baby bird doesn't have a chance
with
a mute swan.
It just kind of fascinates me that as far as the socially acceptable part of the management and all that goes, where people have how do you want to word it? They've got such a perception of things. Like if you brought these people to where they raise beef cattle and chickens and all that stuff, and you saw how they were managed, for our consumption, a lot of people may never go to the store and get a chicken breast from Meijer or Kroger or a beef patty. It's just people's perception of things just kind of fascinates me in a way.
What they choose to know.
Well, I believe this last weekend when we were in Wisconsin, when we got back from the brewery.
The curlers?
Yeah, we went and sat in a hot tub, and there was some curling people from Chicago, and the one lady asked what we were doing here. We're like, oh, we're here for a deer scouting thing. And she's like, I don't like hunting, and got up and left the pool.
She was
just
offended.
Left the room, didn't even want to talk to us. It was like, wow.
What have you done for a deer lately?
Yeah. Right. She doesn't like hunting, but has she done anything for the habitat or the management of deer?
Right.
Probably not.
No.
Nothing. But we get back to one of your original questions. Are people more educated now?
Right.
Well, it depends on what they're educating themselves with.
Exactly. It depends on what they've educated themselves for. If it doesn't happen within their house or within their drive to work, they're oblivious to it.
Right. And it's all the different propagandas or whatever, because people on social media, they can follow things. And I think you brought it up before, and I've heard people talk about what do they call it? Ego rhythm or ergo. What is that? It'll basically track what you're into, and you'll get fed more and more of that information, and it kind of algorithm. It'll basically it can warp your perception of things, like
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, if you Google a pair of boots, the next thing you see on your links, you're going to see a bunch of boots for sale.
Or even what you say, you
know?
mentioned it. You can mention something, and these mics
Yeah,
can
these
access.
apps have access to your microphones.
Oh,
now.
okay.
Hear our
They'll
whole
market off of that.
conversation.
Okay.
Me and him were talking about a health nutrition bar one day in his truck. I'd never had one ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
We're driving. He says, "Hey, try this," We were having a 2-minute conversation about it. I open my phone to social media. First ad that pops up.
It's for that same thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, God,
Spooky.
put this thing away.
Spooky. Put it in a lead box and lock it.
Hey, we'll get wrapping up here pretty soon because I know everybody's got to get home and it's kind of late. I had a couple specific questions, and then if you guys have anything that you want to ask too.
Quick ones, yeah.
Tagging deer. So I have those 2 deer that I shot here this year sitting on the table.
Okay.
They still have the tags on them.
Yep.
When is it appropriate if you handle your own deer to be able to remove that tag? At what point?
Once it's been processed for consumption.
Okay. So like right now I would be okay to have.
You can take that off. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I wouldn't. It would be a good idea to hang on to the tag, but it's not required to be tagged at this point. Once it's been processed for consumption,
Okay.
it no longer has
So
to
once
have
it's
a
all
tag.
butchered up and put away in the freezer,
Yep.
you're okay to take the tag
Take
off.
the tag
of it.
off. Yep.
But if you're got it back in your garage and you shot it that night and you're working on it,
It needs to have a tag on it.
okay.
Yeah, basically, what the law says, you shall immediately tag a deer. Now, there isn't too much of a debate what immediate is, but for enforcement purposes, once you've removed that deer from where you found it dead, the immediate part is passed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite immediate anymore.
That's the
right?
simplest part I can say. If it's been moved from where it was found dead, it should have a tag on it.
Okay, that's good to know because I've been negligent of that in the past. You get all excited. Oh my gosh, shot a
exactly.
deer.
Get it to
An
the
hour
truck.
goes by and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, oh man, I better put my tag on it.
Yes.
There are a
Because
lot of emotions running.
yeah, and that's where, we talked about discretion. I've gotten excited about deer before, but because of what I do, I get my tag out pretty darn quick.
Right.
But if I didn't do this job, I may not think about that in the excitement of the situation.
Right.
But ultimately, for us, as far as enforcement goes, we want to have an idea of how many deer are taken. That's why you can only take 1 deer with each tag. And you have to have it tagged so that you're not using multiple licenses or multiple deer on the same license.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the simplest way for me to explain it is if it's been removed from where you found it dead, it should have a tag on it.
Okay.
Until it's either the taxidermist can take the tag off,
Okay.
the meat processor can take the tag off,
Mm-hmm.
or if a person does their own processing, once that deer's been processed for consumption, they can remove the tag.
Okay.
So the meat off the bones, it's in bags.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
That's
even if it
simple
maybe
enough.
I guess you're breaking down to get real technical, but if you just have it quartered in the fridge, is that considered for consumption, or is that not butchered into?
I would say that's probably not.
You're in the
butchered to
process of
consumption.
it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
There should probably be a tag on it somewhere because again, normally where we tag our deer, it's in the ear or it's in the back gamble or it's around an antler. It's not in the way of the processing process.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's only quartered, the tag should still be on the hide. You could have the quarters in the freezer
Right.
or in the refrigerator chilling, but your carcass is still going to have a tag on it, I would think.
Yeah.
And it's that fresh.
Right.
So
Okay.
don't know if I answered
No,
that.
absolutely.
absolutely.
Perfectly.
Okay.
Tree stands. We've actually had quite a few guys message in asking about this. Tree stands, ground blinds, particularly pertaining to, obviously public land.
Mm-hmm.
On private land, you can build permanent structures. You can leave up, do what you want.
Yep.
But on public land, there's a date at the end of the season where
March 1st,
now I know in a lot of other states and guys that'll listen to this, they actually have to carry in and out every day.
Yep.
Not allowed to leave anything. But in Michigan, you can put a tree stand up as early as
September 1st.
September 15th, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Maybe
Oh, wow.
September 1st.
Okay.
I think it's the 15th.
Okay, and then the first for March or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And
Yeah.
then it can stay up all season,
Yes.
correct?
With your name and address or your driver's license number on it, visible from the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
9 times out of 10, you don't see that.
No, you don't.
No.
And the problem is it being for us is we don't have the homemade trees. Because we now have the law too that you cannot put nails in trees. You can use the 1 T-screw to secure your tree stand to the tree that will enter into the cambium of the tree. But that's the only thing that's supposed to be into that bark.
No screw-in steps.
No screw-in steps, no nails, no screws to build the blind.
hangers, any of that
Well, you
stuff.
can use hangers to, I don't know.
Gray area a little bit.
Yeah, the gray area for the hanger thing, because that.
Can't use bow hangers to climb up the tree.
Yeah, it's. I think that would be, black and white violation.
Sure.
But I don't believe an officer is looking for that violation, because that's generally not a problem. The problem for most of the public lands where we sell timber is that we're trying to protect those timber sales, because if there's metal in that tree, it's going to wreck the timber sale part of it.
Right.
So that, and it's a safety concern, because you guys have probably been in the woods enough. You go through, you find an old wooden stand that's fallen apart, and you'd never get up in there. But somebody
Rusty
used it.
nail.
Somebody at one time used that thing for a stand. But the problem for us is that if we go in and we find a stand, we may be able to try and come back and catch someone in that stand. But ultimately, if we don't catch anybody, we leave it there for the next year, and we try to catch somebody in the next year. Now, this is where I think you and I had a conversation or a text.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you take that down as a private citizen when you find a tree stand that's not got any identification
outside
on it? Exactly, outside those dates. Well,
because it has to be removed.
Yes.
After the season.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
There's a date.
There's a date.
March 1st.
I think it's March 1st.
Yep.
Okay. And the tree stands all have to be, by law, they need to be down.
Correct. Removed from the state land. Because ultimately, we don't want someone monopolizing that public ground.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing too. Also, just in case your listeners aren't up to speed on, if you place a blind on public land, it's first come first serve.
Mm-hmm.
Tree stand,
blind, ground blind.
That's now public
you can't
property.
You can't stake
property,
property, right?
Yeah, you can't monopolize a piece of ground.
So if the scenario, you went out, you hung a tree stand, you come out the next day and there's someone sitting in it,
there's no violation.
Legally, they are rightful to do that.
Correct.
Even if it's properly
now,
labeled.
morals might come into play a little bit.
Sportsmanship, it's not going to be any cool. It's not a
not
sportsman
thing fly over too well with
but
the guy.
As far as the law is concerned,
right,
first come first serve in that stand.
Right.
You have to have your name on it, and you have to claim ownership. But someone else can use that.
I just got.
I've heard a story.
I got a whole bunch of new good spots now.
I heard a story of a guy sitting in a tree stand that he put the tree stand up, and he went and approached a guy, and he was in his tree stand. There's a ladder stand, and the guy was in it, and he wasn't getting out, so he starts to take the bottom steps out of it. Well, I'm going to move my stand now.
Yeah.
So that might, I don't know.
That'd be problematic, because if the guy fell out,
right, exactly, somebody would be liable.
He's liable for the guy's injuries.
Right.
So, but you were getting back to what you had just said. You had asked him about taking as
what's
a
the
general.
proper procedure do I remove it, leave it at the base of the tree, or contact you?
Well, I would recommend contacting us. Give us coordinates for it.
Would that just be through the RAP line?
The RAP line would be the best way.
Okay.
The Report All Poaching Hotline, that's what the RAP line is. And that's our dispatch for the state of Michigan for conservation officers. And we may know about it or we may not. Because we have so many responsibilities throughout the fall, we don't have a lot of time to go walking through every piece of state land we might have.
Right.
So some tree stands I know about, some tree stands I don't. But once I take it down, it now is property. It's the department. State of Michigan has seized that, and it has to go into evidence. And I have to take it down to my office in Detroit, and I have to log it in, and we don't have storage for all these tree stands.
Yeah. You guys can drop them off here.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to put a plug in for that, too.
Well, I have given tree stands away to the Boy Scouts. Mm-hmm. I've given them away to different
That's great.
organizations that would put them to use.
Good use, yeah.
But when we had a change in policy, we can no longer take those down and do what we want with them because we haven't condemned those. Like if someone was to do something illegal and I seize their equipment because they used it illegally, I have to have a condemnation hearing, and that the judge or the court system would condemn that item to become property of the state of Michigan, then we can sell it. So in this scenario where you find a tree stand with no name on it outside of the dates in which it's supposed to be on state land, if I was to go out and take that down, I have to put it into evidence. I don't know who the owner is, and I have to be able to condemn that through the court. And if I don't know who the owner is, the court's not going to condemn it. So it's a catch-22. It's not necessarily abandoned property, but I don't think anyone can be arrested for stealing it. It's
in limbo.
It's a gray area.
Right. It does seem like it would be abandoned property outside of that.
Well, that's the thing.
Time.
There isn't anything that says it's considered abandoned that. There are statutes that say if a vehicle's left here in the roadway or in a public area and it's towed to an impound and it's impounded for X amount of days or weeks and no one returns it, it's condemned or it's considered abandoned. And then that tow company is able to file paperwork to get ownership of that to sell it to pay for their services. Well, we have nothing in place under our laws that says a tree stand left out after this date with no name on it is abandoned property. It's if it was on private property and someone was trespassing, I would tell the property owner it's your property. You didn't put it there. You can do what you want with it.
Even within the range of the season, that's their property.
Yeah, it's their property. It's on their property, and if they want to remove it, they can. Now, if someone comes to them and says, "You've got my tree stand,"
you might have to give back, but then you can file trespassing
exactly.
charges.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I've had that a couple times where we don't know who the person is that put the tree stand there, but the property owner removes it, and then someone comes knocking on their door. And then they say, well, you can have your stuff back, but the conservation officer is going to be called, and you'll be getting a trespass ticket to boot.
It's like that guy. Hey, that guy stole my drugs.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, we'll give them back to you.
Right.
You're coming with me, sir.
Right. Yep.
My question has to relate to trespassing. A lot of people that listen to this show are public land hunters, and he just interviewed a guy last week that found himself in some trouble. We all use Onyx Maps, a lot of us on our phones now.
Yep.
And if a map's not updated or something, and you just happen to walk onto some private land that's not marked, there's no signs or anything,
right.
What kind of trouble can you find yourself in?
Well, under the law here in Michigan, if it's not agricultural or an adjacent woodlot to an agricultural piece on the property, it has to be fenced or posted against trespass. So if you're hunting on public ground and you happen to walk into a neighboring lot that is a 5-acre piece of woods and it's not fenced or posted, I can't write the citation for trespass. You can be told to leave, and if you don't leave, then I can arrest you for criminal trespass. But under the recreational trespass, and it's non-agriculture, I can't write the ticket.
So, I guess this is pushing a little bit. So if you were told you need to leave, this is private, and then you get caught, you get another call, and the guy gets caught the next week, it's not posted still.
Well,
you still have to tell him to leave, or you can write for repeat offenses. You can
once the person's been told to leave and not come back, it's criminal trespass.
Okay. I figured that's what it would be. But
what if they were to shoot a deer in that period? Well,
and that's again a situation where we have a trespass, but I can't write the ticket. And if it was a ticketable offense, then I would be able to charge restitution for. I would be able to seize that animal taken, and I would be able to charge that person with restitution for the trespass because that animal shouldn't have been taken during the trespass.
Right.
There again, that's the problem. If the property owner doesn't take, and it's on their responsibility to post or fence their property against trespass. If a person shoots an animal on the property and they don't have it properly posted, I can't pursue that criminal trespass or the recreational trespass.
Makes sense.
So I can't seize the game. I may be able to seize the game under an agreement with the guy that says we're not going to charge you for the criminal trespass, but every situation is somewhat different. But I haven't had that situation yet. In my 22 years, I haven't had a situation where I had someone take an animal during
legal season.
with and being trespassing, but not being able to prosecute them. I haven't had that situation come up yet.
And then get frustrating too, because I'm not I don't own a bunch of private land. You guys own a decent sized chunk, and I know I've gone with you before and posted it. People will just go tear off signs,
Yes.
a lot. So it can be kind of a struggle. But
Yes, and I recommend if you do it, take a stepladder,
get them up
put
high.
the signs up higher so that they just can't come by and walk by and tear them off.
Right.
But there again, you've got to, depending on how big your property is, you could spend a small fortune in weather-resistant signs that are going to last you a couple years. But if you buy the cheap ones, you're going to be doing that every year.
Yeah, they last.
The paper ones are like 3 months.
They're done by the end of the year. So you can get some nice plastic ones, but they're going to cost you more money.
Right.
But there again, if it is a piece of property that's been farmed, any adjacent woodlot on that property would not have to be posted against trespass for us to write the ticket.
Well, that's kind of
So
yours.
if you guys have farm fields on your property, technically the adjacent woodlots that someone's maybe hunting in would not have to be posted for us in order to enforce the Trespass Act on that.
Why is that?
It's just the way the law was written.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't. It's been the trespass law was written so long ago. I don't know the rationale behind why it's. I think it's because it's common sense that if it's a farm field, somebody else owns it. It's not. It's not state land.
When they were writing those laws, they probably weren't having the state put in food plots for deer and whatnot. So I mean, you walked into agriculture, you knew you were off the public land.
Yes.
And I'm sure if there's a push for it now, if it was a hot button thing, that there could be possible changes in the rules, but it's just not a big focus.
Well, there has been talk. Other states have gone to the purple law, they call it, where you buy a bright, it's a certain shade of purple paint.
Oh,
I've heard
I saw that in Ohio, actually. Ohio did mark some
Ohio
of that.
does that?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
seen some purple paint in Ohio.
Well, they have, it's kind of a pastel bright pink, purple color, and they've enacted a law that says if the boundaries of that property are painted,
that is a no trespassing sign.
that's a no trespassing sign. That property's posted.
Makes sense.
And it lasts longer. It's cheaper.
Yeah. You
And
can't just scrub it off a tree.
Exactly.
Or as
So,
many trees.
It's easier for the property owners to do the posting that's required in order for them to protect the property from trespass.
Yeah, and you're not putting a bunch of litter out there either. Those signs deteriorate,
True.
fall
Right.
apart. You're pounding
Staples
nails in.
and
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But that hasn't passed in Michigan. It's been talked about,
Yeah, it would seem
but
good.
it's never passed. It's never been gone any farther than just talk. But the other states have adopted that purple law, but we don't have it here yet.
You got anything?
I did have a couple things I'll do real quick. One would be, and I actually just not last year but the year before, one of your partners actually approached me in the woods. I was out there for opening day, and I was able to sneak out of work real quick, and I'm on a piece of private land, and it had public access as far as a railroad that went through it.
Okay.
And I'm hunting in my stand, and I went out wearing my orange, and I'm up in the tree stand, and I hear a truck kind of rolling down. I'm like, what's going on? Sometimes the CN guys will come down the railroad.
Yep.
Well, I kind of look, and I could see that it wasn't CN. I'm looking, and then I recognized it was a conservation vehicle. So I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hide behind a tree because I don't want to get hassled. And I didn't think that I was breaking any rules or laws. But I mean, you guys are good. He saw me and approached me and had me come down from the tree. And this is kind of where my question lies. When you're out in the woods, you guys are by yourself, and you have to be very cautious. You never know what type of individual you're going to approach, and a lot of times during the season, or a lot of people have weapons on them, whether it's firearm or whatever.
Yeah, if they don't have a gun with them, I'm kind of suspicious.
Right. So my question would be, I didn't get a citation or nothing like that. Very, very nice guy. We talked, and the issue was fixed. But my question would be, what could any hunter or fisherman or somebody out in the woods that you run into could basically, how would you like the person to react as you're approaching them? What would put you most at ease? Which would be the best situation to start in the right foot with a conservation officer out in the woods?
Well, if it's it's someone that I'm just coming up on, I'm obviously concerned about the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can set it down or if they can unload it safely,
mm-hmm.
then that reduces my anxiety of what they're doing with the weapon. Because as a conservation officer, I have firearms in a different category than a normal police officer. If a normal officer comes across a gun, they're pulling their gun out instantaneously because that's a weapon, that's a threat.
Right.
When I'm working with people and guns, it's a tool of recreation. It's not there as a weapon to hurt me. But like you said, I don't know.
Right.
And it's only take a split second for someone to decide they want to shoot me.
Right.
But ultimately, if someone can set the gun down or unload it in a safe manner where it's not pointing my direction,
mm-hmm.
I've had people unload guns poorly and lead them towards me, or just not careful where their barrel's pointed. But that would be the number one thing is that will alleviate my concern with you having that gun in your hand. There's so many people carrying pistols. I kind of expect everybody anymore to have a CPL,
yep.
or not even have a CPL. They just might have one there that they shouldn't.
Right. Yeah.
But
well, that's a whole different.
The biggest thing for me and most of my coworkers, I think, is if you can set that one down, take it out of your hands, or unload
threat,
it.
Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Because the hands are what's going to hurt us,
mm-hmm.
and what's in your hands is what's going to hurt us. So if your hands are empty, I've got less apt to get hurt.
Right.
Unless you're a Mike Tyson guy.
Right.
Knock me out. But if your hands are empty, you're not going to be able to use that weapon against me as quickly. So I have an advantage. But other than that, that'd be the first thing, I guess. Because we don't know who we're walking up to.
Right.
Bad guys don't wear signs.
Right.
And you don't know. And like I said, if they don't have a gun, I'm suspicious also because okay, you're out here in the woods during hunting season. Where's your gun? Why would you hide a gun unless you didn't have a license or you were doing something else wrong?
Right.
So when they hide something, or I suspect they're hiding something, the bells and whistles are going off again.
Right.
So, but ultimately, if someone does have a gun and they're seeing an officer coming in their direction, if they could unload it or set it off to the side where it's not in their hand, that's gonna help us relax a little bit about the situation.
Right. I mean, you guys are highly trained, so you can analyze a situation pretty quickly as you're walking up. And I figured, I guess it is a little bit of common sense, and this is how I basically reacted when he came up was, first I wanted to let him know I acknowledge that I see him,
Mm-hmm.
At a distance, kind of give him a wave, get his attention. I got that. I was in my climbing stand. I had a single shot H&R slug gun.
Okay.
So I made sure it was open, cracked open, and I started lowering it down the tree so the gun's separate from me.
Yep,
and then
perfect.
He waved me down. I worked my way down the tree, and the issue was I walked out. I had a camel coat, and I walked out with a orange hood up. When I was in my stand, the hood came down, not even thinking, and I had a camo hat on, and at that point, it was a safety issue where I didn't have orange. 360 degrees, I think, is what it said.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
So we had just a brief conversation, and just kind of let me know what it was. I apologized. I produced my license. He asked me if there was anybody else on the property, and I said, yep. And I just kind of told him where I was at, and it was he understood that and he must be a hunter as well, or just he rational guy, and sent me good luck and have a good day, and make sure you're wearing your orange. Don't let anybody get hurt. So very positive, but so I mean I guess it's common sense, just kind of what I just said.
Well, and again, there's a lot of people that don't have much of that.
Right, especially nowadays.
It's trending in the wrong direction.
And then two real quick, and then I'm done. One would be, what is the best way for the general public to support you guys? Maybe just in like 1-2 little things, like support conservation officers, the DNR, or whatever.
Well, purchasing licenses. We are funded by license sales. Basically, the Pittman-Robertson Act is a tax on all hunting and fishing equipment, and all the sportsmen that buy equipment pay into that tax.
So buy more gear.
And the gear, that all goes into a big pile, and the U.S. Fish and Game Service divvies that out to the states based on license sales. So if we're selling a lot of licenses, we're going to get more of that piece of pie. So that helps us fund our activities for the whole department, not just law enforcement division.
I'm so glad you said that, because I tell you what, nothing aggravates me more than the guys that go online right now and say, well, the NRC didn't pass the law, so I can shoot, only these bucks, and I'm done with Michigan. I'm not buying a license. I'm thinking, you're part of the problem.
Well,
you're not part of the solution.
Exactly.
If that's how you think you're gonna stick it to the man, you're hurting everybody, man. You're just spiraling things in the wrong direction.
Yep.
If you want to buy the license and then set it on your counter and take a picture of it and say, this tag will not be filled this year because I don't believe that the state's doing this job, good, go do that.
Right.
But to not buy a license is just ridiculous.
Right.
Especially if you're hunting.
Well, that's what obviously. Well, it's even the people that freak out about the stuff that we were talking about earlier, the people that save the swans.
Right.
Don't harm our swans. Go buy a hunting license and set it on your counter.
Yeah,
put your money where your mouth is.
Federal duck stamp.
Yes. Yep.
Buy a federal duck stamp.
They're not the antis aren't doing anything for the management.
Not part of the solution.
They're putting their money into legislative action, but the hunters are the ones who are putting the money into the habitat and to the resources. It's a proven fact.
Right.
But that's the number one thing.
Okay.
Funding is always a problem.
Yep.
And that's where we work in a whole different gamut of other state employees. State employees do have to work with restricted funds, but we are a victim to a certain extent of the process for restricted funds. Because, for instance, if I'm working waterfowl hunters and I stop a boat and he's a drunk boater, now this is a marine violation. So I stop getting paid by the Fish and Game Fund, and now I'm getting paid by the Marine Safety Act in order to arrest the guy for drunk boating. So my day has to be broken up by what fund is paying for me that part of the day.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, I have to break down my day as to what fund paid for that amount of hours for my day. And normally it's broken down into multiple things because, like we've talked about before, my day is not standard one thing all day long. Wintertime we get X amount of snowmobile hours based on number of officers in this part of the state, we get so many hours of snowmobile enforcement. Now the guys up north, they get more snowmobile enforcement time because they have trails up north. But everybody that has a snowmobile lives down here.
Yeah.
So when the snow is blowing, there's people riding snowmobiles down here. So we have 20 hours of snowmobile enforcement for each officer this year. Last year we had 12 because we just didn't have the snow last year. So they sent the money to the guys in the UP and the Northern Lower to put that work effort into the snowmobile. Same thing with Marine. We have X amount of hours per officer every summer or boating season to match the funds from the Coast Guard because they give us X amount of money to do marine enforcement on the waters. And again, if I'm working something like I'm working deer hunters and I've come across a guy driving a four-wheeler drunk. Okay, now I'm not working wildlife anymore. Now I'm working ORV violation. So now I got to come out of the ORV fund.
Wow.
So I don't know of many other state employees that have to document what monies are paying for them for that hour of the day. But basically for us, if I get into something that takes me more than a half an hour, I have to claim that time in that program to pay for that time that I'm spent on that. So that's something a lot of people don't understand.
That's
how that works
idea.
because they think, you just get paid from state funds.
Right.
Well, it is state funds, but it's not
itemized.
It's itemized, exactly.
Yeah,
so
you're billing your time to that job.
Exactly.
So another way you can support conservation and all that, if you're going to break the laws, then don't be drunk, and so the funds can go to the state of Michigan. But I mean, I could sit here and you've been a wealth of information, and again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And I could sit here all night and ask you questions.
Yep.
Maybe we could have you back again.
We can do this again.
I would
That'd be
absolutely
awesome.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Reoccurring
great.
thing would be awesome.
Yep. I
Maybe
think
right before hunting season.
Oh,
do
that'd be
something. Get everybody brushed up on any new laws or whatever
Right.
or anything. And
Yeah, because I'm guessing that with the CWD coming on in the state, we're going to have some changes.
yeah.
I don't know where we're going as far as bait or requirements for registration. I mean, we're there already in the core areas, but I don't know what they're going to do regionally for those same things, because there's a lot of things, and the wildlife management is a moving target. The numbers come and go, the diseases come and go. Hopefully we can keep this chronic wasting thing knocked down and it won't spread too bad, but other states have got it, and it's just a bugger.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing.
Hopefully we can keep it down to a small painful thing as opposed to a horrific incident on our deer herd.
Right.
But that's, I'm sure it'll be changing.
Maybe by this next season.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll find out.
Yeah.
I think June. We're gonna have Chad Stewart on.
Oh,
again.
good. Excellent.
We had him on last spring. We'll have him on again
Great.
this summer.
Yep.
He said wait till then because there's going to be a lot of changes coming. And
Yep. Yeah, and I'm sure if you guys want to get somebody from the Fisheries Division, the Lake St. Clair Research Center or Research.
Yeah, I bet
That'd
that's
be
where I
great for
checked my
summer
deer.
too.
They could probably get somebody on and talk about fishing.
That would be great.
They do a lot of sturgeon work there because they're so close to the sturgeon grounds. And you don't have to talk to me. We've got other guys that can come in and talk too if you want. It doesn't matter to me, but it's
Just your willingness to come here and help us out. It's there's so many people that are going to benefit from
I've
this.
been unbelievably
I've been
impressed
educated.
with
Oh,
the state of how willing everybody is to jump on board to spread the word.
Well, we want folks to go out and have fun.
Right.
We don't want to have those folks who feel like it's all a big secret.
Right.
It isn't a big secret. We are a recreation. We are a service-related department. We're providing a service. Now, not everybody's going to want the service that I provide by writing tickets.
Right.
But ultimately, the goal is to provide a service so that you are safe when you're enjoying the activities in the outdoors.
Level the playing field, properly manage and
Exactly.
take care of our natural resource, so it's like you said, available for the future generations.
Exactly.
Yep.
But it's been a good time, and anytime you guys got my number.
Okay.
Give me questions, give me a call, or I
Absolutely.
can come back down and jump back on the mic.
That would be awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank
Really
you very
appreciate
much.
you coming
Thank
in.
You. Thank you.
Great conversation.
Yep.
Thanks for everybody listening, and take your kids hunting and fishing.
God walked out